There we go.
We gotta put on the music.
Oh, we're gonna need some Adam Lore. I better keep talking until I can get some Adam Lore up here, huh? Dun dun dun.
Looks like we're on.
Oh no. Boo doo 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 Oh man, I suck at this, being the intro music.
Oh, you sound great.
Look at the particle target now. Look at the particle target, then get the particle target ever, or you'll ruin the experiment.
Five. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I guess we better promote. Quick, promote us.
Promote us, you guys.
Andy Worski kicked Donga's ass.
Made a successful spin-off of Horse Live. That we're inside. It's not just a copycat shit. We're a successful spin-off of Horse Live.
We're a spin-off. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Mario Paint, everyone singing. Mario Paint, I hope you're ringing. The mouse pad that comes with Mario Paint. Mario Mario Paint, please come over to play Mario Paint. I have the mouse pad, and I want you to come over so bad. I want you to come over so bad. I want you to come over so bad. I cleaned my room and found the mouse pad. Clicking away to the number that reminds me of you.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll be right with you. No dead air between the Adam Lore songs. Come on, YouTube, pick it up. Let's go. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. I love a girl and she's stuck in a pipe. Silvery
I think we've failed. Hold on.
What?
Oh no, cool. And let's check this. Okay, that needs to be
Did you hit stop streaming?
no, I was just realizing we needed to double check a few things here.
Oh yeah.
Make sure that it looks good. Don't want to be accused of being unprofessional or like people saying that maybe Tracy Twyman deserves better than this show.
What's up, chat? We got Gypsy Hustle. We got Snake Jones, number 9.
We do need to.
We got American One. Luckily, 337. Welcome.
The girl's hot. I reckon I'd give her the old and out, eh? You know what I mean? I reckon, Din out of eight. Okay, we need to add this to that. Media exam time.
So Gypsy Hustle said the song has grown on him over the weeks.
You should go check out anyone who's getting these songs stuck in their head. You should go peruse Adam Lore's channel and listen to the ones that aren't like this. Because this is a song called Particle Target, making fun of particle accelerators and the double slit experiment, and it's great.
It is a great song.
Look at the particle target now. Don't look at the particle target then. Don't look at the particle target ever, or you'll ruin the experiment. Alright, I think we're getting close.
Yeah.
Ooh, did you make a list?
Make a list.
Yeah. I mean, I know we talked
Made
about
a list
it.
before.
Oh, where's my here? Put that. The other ones.
Does it have another one?
There should be a copy of Genuflect right here somewhere.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's where it is.
Neurology. That's weird. You got all upstairs.
Go look.
We're almost ready, folks. We gotta get one more prop. Hope you're enjoying the newer meme selection. We've definitely updated the memes, and we intend to update them more consistently. Seems like we're getting a lot of popularity on the Twitter, especially with our potential representative there in the UK, Daz Alt Theory. At Daz Alt Theory definitely has some ideas for future memes, and I've been saving a few of them. Sharpening the pencil, gonna make a list. too critical. Just remember, having a random library almost tipping over is way better than having a big screen TV. And you have both.
Weird. That's alright. Maybe we'll just have to bow down to the idea that we're not going to find it.
Oh, man.
All right.
Get down there.
Well, we're getting some chatting going on. Better shots.
Oh, it's right here, Jim.
Oh,
We're idiots. We knew that.
right in front of us.
All right. That should put us in a position to start. Get some green dye.
What's going on in the
A
chat?
little bit more water. They're rubbing their little tentacles together.
Yes, Tracy will be with us tonight.
I would never put her name in the title if she wasn't available this week. Not without permission. All right. I'm gonna do that, Jim. See what I did right there?
Raise it up a bit.
Well, I guess I could cover it. I need to.
No, just so that it doesn't tell the audience where she's at.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that part. So is that all right?
You can go a little lower. You just need to hide that
Yeah, we gotta hide
great
the-
bar. I don't think that it says where she's at necessarily, but I think
No,
it can
it's just-
say how to get into
Yeah, it could give them enough info to mess with our hangout. All right, should we pause this and go?
Yeah.
All right, here we come. I'm just gonna stop Adam Laura cold. They call this a cold stop. Ladies and
Oh.
gentlemen, we are live with RX Only Picture Show
Picture
number
show.
35. I'm SB. This is Jim, and of course with
Hello.
us is the lovely Tracy R. Twyman of Plus Ultra
Down
fame.
here.
Yeah,
Hello.
how do we? Is it like this? Just right down there. It makes me think of Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, or the Brady Bunch. You know, the intro.
Yeah.
They're all
Oh
looking
man,
around.
we need a Brady Bunch intro where we all wear different Brady Bunch outfits. Maybe we need to start a GoFundMe.
That's a good reason for a
I think we need to
GoFundMe.
start about 101 GoFundMes. Instead of doing this like one big amount, like if we could get everybody to give $8 to like 1,000 different ones, it'd be great. So please let us know in the chat and if any of the audio or video is out of whack. We trust you in the chat. We love you in the chat. You guys are awesome. But we do rely on you because, in case you haven't noticed, we have kind of a wonky setup. Live mics all over a room with a PA and porting Tracy in through the wonderful free software Google Hangouts. So, and I guess I should tell them what we're doing, huh? This week we're going to talk about this weird phenomenon that people think there's such a, I think Joe Atwell coined the term lifetime actors, I think. And I don't think he was imagining it like I do, but I think of someone who had to play a role up to a point, and then they have to change their costume and their makeup, maybe go away for a little while, and then they come back as someone else. And who would you guys say is the most, like, who comes to mind that everyone would think of?
Hulk Hogan, I would think. He's a lifetime actor. He's always playing the part of Hulk Hogan, right? Unless he's on trial.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of someone who's switched roles, but yeah, Hulk Hogan is a perfect example, or Jesse Ventura, that he actually got elected under his wrestling name. That is not his name, you know. So that's a good way to start with just the idea that people, especially in entertainment, often are not using their real names, and we all know this, but we forget it, and then we reference them in our mind as their persona and not their real selves. I mean, I'd say that makes the three of us pretty unique, even on YouTube. That we, my name's SB Alger, I'm not fronting, and I'm pretty sure Tracy and Jem are really exactly who they say and appear to be. It's kind of hanging our asses out in the wind, but I'd rather do it that way than be, like, what would I call myself, Rory Shipwreck?
I've regretted many times that I've I started years ago with my real name, and there's no going back after a while. But I really wish I hadn't. I think my life would be a lot better actually if I had come up with some kind of stage name.
Yeah, I understand that, especially because you have a lot higher profile than we do. I may come to regret it someday. Who knows? I'm willing to take the risk, but I can see what you mean. It's weird to think of doing it in reverse, right? Like we could create a pseudonym to live under and try and go get a regular job at Staples or something. And I think Rory Shipwreck might be kind of obvious, but I could come up with a better last name.
Well, that's the thing, is that you can't. Like, if I wanted to go get a regular job, and even if I put, a fake name or even a married name or whatever, still they're going to look up your social security number eventually, and they'll figure out who you are.
True, so, that's true. Yeah, I guess fabbing up all the documents would be massively inconvenient.
Yeah, so no, we're stuck with this persona, and everybody knows who we are, and they can come harass us if they want to, and there's nothing we can do about it. Unlike whoever played the role of Paul McCartney.
There's a perfect
that person
example.
Can go and do whatever they want to.
That's a great example. I was trying to think of someone that everyone would recognize, because I scratched down a list real quick, just it's to keep it fresh in front of us. But so if you guys don't know, of course, the story with Paul McCartney, and I learned about this when I was very young because my mother is a huge Beatles fan, and so since that time I was 4, I was dancing around on my couch with my Dukes of Hazzard orange plastic guitar in my underoos, and pretending that I was gonna replace John Lennon when I grew up, so that the Beatles could get back together. But Paul McCartney supposedly died in a car accident, and then they replaced him with this other guy named Bill William. Isn't the guy's name William?
Well, I've heard a bunch of different angles on this, so I'm not sure. Like, there's this guy named Tara Brown that they were all friends with who did die in a car accident around the same time that it's suspected of happening to Paul. So there's a theory that those guys were both playing this role the whole time. They were both in on it. And at times.
So wait, his name's Tara Brown?
Yeah, I actually through Twitter I sent you his Wikipedia, and he's the guy that A Day in the Life was written about. He's a socialite, I guess. That's what it says in his Wikipedia. He's like basically a heir to the Guinness fortune and some kind of socialite, famous for knowing famous people.
Heir to the Guinness beer fortune. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know everything about this angle on the theory, but I know that some people think that guy played the role of Paul McCartney up to a point, and then that someone else had to take over after that. So, and then I don't know. There's this. I think we should appeal to the chat here, because I think that they could chime in with what some of the other alternative theories are. Like, I know. What's the deal with Billy Shears? Isn't that one of the
Yeah. So
characters?
That's what I was gonna say. I followed I don't remember the guy's name, but he's got a show, The Sage of Quay. You might have landed on his page on YouTube. He's a hypnotist, and he does conspiracy stuff, and he did quite a few shows in a row and dealing with the Billy Shears character and the idea that they had someone replace Paul McCartney and that his name is Bill something. I don't remember his last name. But his real name is William, so that's why they call him Billy Shears. And there's all this evidence of him having a similar band to the Beatles before Paul died, quote unquote. And he wrote this really weird encoded book called The Memoirs of Billy Shears. And I was going to buy a copy, and I never did, and now it's through the roof. Oh, by the way, I want to point out, Tracy, Jim said he saw this book that I just recently bought when I was over near you. This is Tracy's book, The Merovingian Mythos and the Mystery of René Le Chateau. He said he saw this on Amazon for big buku bucks, and I think I bought it at the cover price or whatever she wanted, there at the magic shop in the Portland area.
Yeah.
But we were gonna.
I'm not the one. I'm not selling it for $100. Someone else is. It's out of print at the moment.
Right.
So what's going on.
So I feel like I got lucky. I don't know. If they're really selling, if we can see they're selling for that much, maybe we should tell her to order a bunch in and go snatch them from her, huh?
Order a bunch. Where would she get them?
I don't know. So
there's no place to get them.
So that's weird because she didn't have it there last time I went. I went just to find your book, Mind-Controlled Sex Slaves in the CIA, because last time I was in her shop, that was the only thing she had. And so when I went this time...
When was the last time you were in her shop before?
Oh, gosh, it was probably 2 years ago, almost 2 years.
Okay. So. Yes, because it went out of print this summer, so she ordered it, the regular way before.
Yeah, so I must have just got a huge discount on one of the last copies. Awesome. So, but yeah, we're definitely we've got a whole stack of Tracy's books. We're gonna promote them this week. We highly advise you guys to go and at least get the what do they call those things? Not PDF. EPUB book, the electronic
Kindle.
version. Thank you, Kindle is the word I'm looking for. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm still making money off the Kindle, but yeah, the only ones that are in print that I'm benefiting from at the moment are Genuflect and Baphomet.
Awesome. Okay. And after I edit this show later, I'll definitely drop the links to those two specifically so that people can have an easy way to click if they want to find them. But the reason I brought it up was because the same thing happened to that Billy Shears book. Like if you go look for it now, it was like $60. It was like 60 or almost $80 when it was new. And the interviews with that guy, Sage of Quay, his name's Mike something, they're really interesting, and he talks to a variety of different people over and over again about the Paul phenomenon with different details in each one. I think he might even talk to Mark Devlin, and that's a guy that I know that Darren Williams is affiliated with. He's like a DJ in the UK and like big into the hip-hop scene. And it's pretty compelling evidence, I don't know. I remember hearing about this when I was really young and thinking it was weird, like from my mom when I was just a kid. Like some people think Paul McCartney is dead, and I'm like, how could he be dead? He's on the records.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why this phenomenon might be real, not just with Paul McCartney, but with all these people, is because being famous is... it's dangerous, and especially if you've already got money, you've already got a life of your own going, then if you put yourself out there as a front man of a record company or a band or something, that might invite a lot of stuff into your life that you don't want, and so it might be in this case like some rich person decided to be in this band, but they didn't want to expose their whole life to the public, so they have a fake persona. But then, of course, there's probably a lot of other reasons to do this, like that, each one of these instances, like with the Beatles, the Beatles may very well have been a project, and as much as we all love the music and think that they're also very talented, there may have been more behind what was going on than what was presented at face value. It might have been a project by, an intelligence company or intelligence agency or something like that to change culture. And, so they employed actors in order to achieve whatever they planned, which you never really can tell what it was exactly, but they wanted to change culture somehow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sure seems that way if people have looked at like Dave McGowan's book about the strange tales from the canyon, all about how many connections there are between all of the famous rock and rollers and military intelligence. And usually they say the Beatles and other bands, but specifically the Beatles, came out of Tavistock. And if if you start researching into Tavistock, it looks like it's pretty likely. That guy, I emailed that guy, Mike, from the Sage of Quay, and he actually sent me back a name of who supposedly wrote all the Beatles songs. And it wasn't like, lots of people think, George Martin, he's the fifth Beatle. If you're kind of inside music and you know more about music, George Martin is given a lot of credit once you get past the idea of it just being a consumable product and you're playing music. Everybody knows George Martin because he's the one that put all the finishing touches and engineering on the Beatles stuff. But it wasn't him they wrote all this stuff. It was someone else yet. And we definitely know that that's true about music in general. If you've ever heard of, there was like 4 or 5 people that wrote like so many of the popular songs from the 60s. I'm trying to think. They called them like the Hitmen or the Wrecking Crew.
Hit Parade.
The Wrecking Crew. There was if you Google Wrecking Crew, it's a list of what we call sessions musicians. So sessions musicians, you just hire them on for whatever, Like that's I mean, and that's just a common thing. So it's not a far stretch to think that it reaches into everything else. You know, to take it to the next step. I mean, they don't deny that the Wrecking Crew wrote all of these famous songs. It's not a conspiracy. It's well known fact. So to think that the Beatles. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna say, like, there's a similar thing a few years ago. Like the radio waves were dominated by songs that were all produced by the same two Swedish guys, and you know, if you listed the top 40 on any week, you know, you'd find like 20 different songs by these two guys,
Right.
all by different artists. You know.
Oh, that just reminded me of something. I listened to this book about how to develop new habits as an audio book. And in that book, he used the example of Hey Ya by, who is it? Andre 3000 and the other guy. It's a hip-hop rap duo. But you guys remember the song, you know, Hey Ya, Hey Ya. I just can't think of the band's name. But when they wrote that song, they were using back then some kind of AI or popularity comparison software, and said that it spiked really high when they ran it through the computer. I mean,
Wow.
he was using it as an example of how to change your personal habits, but the example he used was how they changed listeners' habits. Because they knew that the song was really popular, but then when they first tried to include it in rotation, everyone turned it off because it was very different than what they were used to. So they started to bump it together with like something that was really popular and something else that was really popular and put Hey Ya in the middle. But it just reminded me that they were using AI back then or something like it, you know, some kind of algorithmic listen to the music and compare to everything else thing. And what you're saying, I'm sure goes with that too. Those guys are writing music either using that program or knowing how to work in that vibe, because, you know, we're not all as unique as we think. You know, what we like is what we like. It's all very similar stuff. So
Yes. Yeah, it's like the versificator in 1984 that would write all the songs.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. I feel like so much crap, some of the deep dive stuff in 1984 is coming true. Like, I feel like all the trans and pedo acceptance crap and everything, because, like, they had all the kids, like, wearing zipper suits and being androgynous, and, like, they'd tell them, like, all right, you kids go run off in the corner and have an orgy, you know, or whatever. And it was, like, supposedly totally normal in the Brave New World. Not 1984, I got them mixed up, I'm sorry. It's in Brave New World,
Yeah, because in 1984 they had the Junior Anti-Sex League, and they were trying to eliminate the orgasm.
That's right. Yeah, so they're opposite.
Right.
But
well, actually, they probably had the same ultimate result. You know, I think that the hypersexualization of our society, and then the promotion of deviant sexuality, you know, and however you want to take that, but, you know, that which is different than the norm, the ultimate result is going to be the elimination of the orgasm. You know, the elimination of anyone even being interested, because they're really ruining it for everybody, you know, and it's all being done deliberately, I think. So
Me too.
just
I
an
agree.
aside.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's such a horrible thought, too. It's true though. Anything you put huge negative association on, it makes it so that everyone who's not, like, confident, outgoing, and a little bit gregarious immediately starts to shy away from it. And if you continue to negatively emphasize it, even people who quote unquote don't give an F, you know, they start to shy away from it too. And so the more that they push it all, the more we're going to be just like, we just don't want anything to do with it. But not thinking about, you know, 20 years from now, it's like, well, yeah, well, I don't know. We talked about it last week, didn't we? That it's already happening in Japan. Like, we don't want to date. We don't want to hold hands. We don't want to come out of our apartment unless we're going to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
And as long as I have some anime, it's all good.
I was thinking about the name Billy Shears, and thinking how it just seems to evoke Baphomet imagery, goat imagery, right? Because of a billy goat, and then the shearing of the goat.
Yeah.
Or the sheep. I don't know. Just a thought there. I think too, like, what's his name? The Savile, Jimmy Savile. You know, he had a lot of involvement with the Beatles in their early career, like helping them get booked and stuff like that. I think he was the manager of some of their tours. And he, you know, when they first appeared in a live setting, it was at his clubs, And I get the feeling like he was, one of the handlers of this project. So I think when you can consider that possibility, the Beatles really takes on kind of a dark tone to it, because Saville was a very dark person, a Satanist and rapist of children and dead people too. So just to think about, the seemingly affable guys, the Beatles, hanging out with a dude like that, it's really creepy,
It is. It's
scary.
And Saville was supposedly the first disc jockey, allegedly, to ever use two turntables.
Oh, really?
I've never.
And a
really-
microphone?
Yeah. Two turntables and a microphone supposedly came from him, and which to me is just like, dude, that's just atrocious. Like, holy shit! Like, if that's true,
Yeah.
I've never done the searching to find out for sure, but I know that that's something I've heard claimed more than once, that it stems back to him. And if you've never the way I found the guy Jason Horsley from the Liminalist website was through Jan Irvin, and what they were talking about was what was before MK Ultra and experiments that were happening like prior to that era, before the cultural and sexual revolution era, and trying to remember the name of the program, but it was a program where they were going and studying the effects of spying on and trying to influence people in dance halls, and it was pretty much Jimmy Savile's, like his era, like it would have been the middle to late 50s or very, very early 60s. I just can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's, if you're interested in all the roots of MK Ultra, it's definitely worth taking a look at, and I can find the name of it, or it'll come to me. But that's where I very first heard of Jason Horsley, because he comes from what he called Champagne Socialist family, and they were involved in like the Fabian Society. He like did a deep dive of his own genealogy and stuff, and found that like his either grandpa or great grandpa, I don't remember, was like straight up big time Fabian socialist, and was pretty suspect of being directly involved in some of this stuff, if not at least funding it or underwriting it. Like they owned a huge dairy corporation for milk or for cattle or something, I just can't remember the name of it. It's okay, it'll come to me later. But
Okay. So who are some of the other people
well, I mean, the one
you were thinking of?
I guess I was trying to think of ones that people would definitely know. I mean, some people, I don't know, some people might have heard of the idea of David Bowie faking his death and seen that Jack Stevens clip, which to me, it's very obviously him because of the smile. Like, there's a photograph of the guy who's supposed to be Jack Stevens, and his smile is, forgive me, but it's much more British. His teeth aren't perfect, and Bowie's got like a big teeth right next to each other, tight, shoved together, a big Cheshire, very obvious smile. So I mean, some of the other people I wrote down here were JFK is Jimmy Carter, if people have never heard of that one.
No, can we go back to Bowie though for a minute?
Yeah.
Were you unimpressed with my thought that he looked a lot like David Duke also?
No, the White Duke. I mean, I don't know if it's now that, to me, that's more of a stretch that Bowie is Duke, but the idea that the music and the synchronicity is there, I don't think, I know outside of the realm of high strangeness, people think that's weird and crazy, but the idea that Bowie is, quote-unquote, the White Duke, and then they bring out David Duke and always have him, like, back in the day, he used to be on the news all the time, and I never thought anything of it. Well, like, when I was young, again, back to, 10, 12 years old, something like that, like, they'd be like, and now this white supremacist KKK guy's running for office and doing this. It's like, why are you promoting him? Why not just be quiet about any crappy racists and not talk about them on NBC or CBS? And, so it's pretty obvious that he is, he's literally the White Duke.
Well, there are some photos that they look very much alike. And so, if we're considering the possibility that these people are actors, there may very well be different actors playing them at different times. And the other thing is, I think that some of them are very closely genetically related.
I agree with that.
that is something that jumps out sometimes. Like one of the other people I was pointing out to you, and we can bring it up later who it is, but I don't think that they're the same person, but it's like because of the time difference, because the other person existed earlier in time, and there's no way they could be the same people because of that. However, unless they're like shape-shifting reptiles and they just live forever. But I do think it's likely that we don't know the truth about how close some of these families are, and since we don't know the real names of a lot of these people, we may not know what their real birthdays are and things like that too. And so I think that's all part of the deception. And the only clues we have are those feelings of recognition when we look at someone sometimes and think, hey, that guy kind of looks like that other guy. And a lot of times that's all you have to go on until you can find the clues that are linking them. But I want to bring something up about Bowie that I think lends itself to this, which is that his family was involved with this charity called Bernardo's. That they were involved. Their job was to help orphans find foster families. So Bernardo's got in trouble for falsifying records and abuse-related deaths of children in their care, and it just seems like that this is the perfect type of family to be involved in this type of stuff. Faking people's identities and things like that. Putting out actors as though they are musicians and things like that.
Yeah, because they've got all they're inside the game of access to what you need. If they're dealing in, because obviously if you have lost children, orphans, etc., adoptions, orphans, all that kind of stuff going on, then you've got your hand right in the middle of documentation of blank. Hey, we don't know anything about this kid. He needs a name. He needs an identity. He needs a birth certificate, whatever. So if you're in good with that person, it's not, especially if they're part of your little club, it's not hard for them to be like, well, we can get one for you too, since you're going to take on your new persona next year, fab up the information.
Yeah.
I was trying to... Sorry.
Yeah.
I was trying to Google
okay.
David Duke and David Bowie, and I thought last time I did this that it came up, but it's just not giving me them side by side. It's weird.
Yeah, there used to be a whole page on this that I can no longer find. But there's another thing about him that I think is just kind of indicates that his role in society was meant to have a certain iconic importance, which is the confluence I see between him and the character in 2001 called David Bowman. Because of course, David Bowie, his birth name is different. It's like Davy Jones something, right?
Yeah,
and,
it is Davy Jones, yeah.
He didn't want to get confused with the guy from the Monkees, so he calls himself David Bowie, naming himself after the knife, which is interesting, like Mac the Knife.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But the fact that he, comes out with his Space Oddity album, obviously, an homage to 2001, and and then there was a character in the movie called David Bowman. It's just quite odd, and indicates to me that there's there was some cross promotion at least that was planned ahead of time that wasn't made obvious to the audience. Like, I don't think that they ever came out and said that there was any connection between those things, but once you think about it, a connection is obvious. So I don't know. It's like, I think that heightens the importance of the ritual and the little symbols that they put out there. If they're in your face, obvious, the synchronicities, and yet nobody ever addresses it and explains it, it just leaves that era of mystery out there. Like, oh, is there a connection between Bowie and Bowman?
Yeah, I agree.
Makes it more powerful.
Yeah, and there's no way that was an accident. I think Bowie was he's like their staple, living, walking, talking, breathing sigil out there, because every single thing you consider controversial, weird, or interesting today, Bowie's in all of it. He's the first guy to come out fully androgynous, trans-looking, come wear a skirt on stage in 1966 or something and wear makeup and high heels and keep taking on different really full-blown actor personas, completely promoting space. His musical repertoire is you can't describe it. There's nothing he hasn't done. As far off the top of my head, he may have never rapped, but I'm probably wrong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think at least in the '80s there was probably some kind of crossover or something.
That just made me think of Dancing in the Streets with Mick Jagger. No, cancel,
Brain cancel.
Did you get to hear that song that I was trying to play during the live stream we did the other day, Sean? That,
You know, I
that
never
didn't-
did. I never did.
Okay, we should play that sometime. So
Tracy-
if you didn't hear it at all, not even a bar of it, then it hasn't been spoiled for you.
Yeah, no, I really didn't. I mean, I heard like just the tiniest second of it while we were trying to get it going. If you guys missed it, Tracy, I was actually in the same town nearby where Tracy's at, and we tried a couple times on her channel to jump on and like do some reaction videos and have some fun, but whatever was in the air wasn't having it, man. The tech difficulties with the technology were just through the roof, up to and including the sound card completely failing by the time we were done. After we were completely offline, we're just by ourselves troubleshooting, and no sound would come out of the headphones or the speakers. We rebooted the machine. You know, I'm not a tech dummy, so I went and looked at all the settings, like nothing. And then Tracy said apparently it's working again, so it was not to be. It was not meant to be. It was kind of crazy.
Gonna email you something here. I don't know if you want to go on with this Bowie discussion right now, or you want to go on to other examples. But what I'm emailing you here is something that we could play and expand upon if you want to talk about like the symbolism of Bowie and his the lightning bolt over the eye.
Yeah,
because I think that has to do with the symbolism of the moon child, or a magically produced homunculus.
I was
But anyway, you can go on to that.
certainly, yeah. I'm
some other time.
fascinated by that. I was trying to at least, you know, for the audience sake, to try and like here's a younger picture of David Duke, and then here's a picture of Bowie that's not terribly dissimilar, and I want to point out to people that if you read the old books like Count of Monte Cristo especially is a great example, but lots of these books of that era, they have ample descriptions of really wealthy people. Sherlock Holmes is another great example of them disguising themselves, like putting little straws up their nose to make their nostrils look more flared, applying makeup, wearing hats, wearing wigs, walking with a limp. Like there's, I don't have a bunch off the top of my head specifically, but there's lots and lots of examples of these old authors talking about rich people playing more than one role. But the Count of Monte Cristo is the best one because he does it to trick all the people he's getting revenge on. But it always made me think that the truly wealthy families, especially what we think of as like kind of British royalty or the royal aristocrats, that they would breed up and send out troops and troops of people that they have to come and live with us in the masses and participate and kind of lead us around like the Pied Piper, and that they may be assigned at any given time different roles, and have, of course, nowadays the resources to hide yourself as far as makeup, and especially digitally. You know, digitally you can do just about anything nowadays. But as far as makeup, hell, I remember having great makeup in junior high just to go to school in a costume. Like my mom helped me put on a bald cap. Remember that show called V with the reptiles? Like
Yes.
I was late to school, so I missed the costume contest. But my mom helped me put on the balding cap and hide my long hair, and she painted all the little dots on my head. It scared the hell out of my classmates. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that David Duke and Bowie are the same person.
It wouldn't surprise you.
Did you know that the Catholic guy I mentioned sometimes, E. Michael Jones, he like went with David Duke to Guadalajara for a week or something and tried to convert him to Catholicism. There's a book about it. It's called Ethnos Needs Logos. I've never read it, but that is such a funny idea to me. Like this staunch, straight line, old-fashioned Catholic. And he's like, "Come on, David, you got to give up on this racism crap and come to the church. Come be a Catholic." I'm like, what the hell? Yeah.
So what about?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying. Do you think that Michael Jackson was the same person throughout that whole time?
You know, I never doubted it because I kind of love Michael Jackson. I guess it could be more than one person. His talent is so through the roof, it seems like it would be impossible. Like
It'd be
his
hard.
dancing, singing, choreography, all that energy that is Michael Jackson. It seems like that's 1 in a million to me. But it could be.
Yeah.
It could be more than one person.
Well, I'm not saying that he's he's a replicant, but it's like that's just an example of the weirdness that goes on, like whatever drove him to do that to himself, to his face, and then the children that we weren't allowed to see until they were older, they covered their faces, and they're obviously not biologically related. Unless you disagree with that, but I mean,
I don't think there's any chance in hell those are
Yeah.
Michael Jackson's kids. Was it Blanket and the kid's name is Prince? I think one of the kids.
Yeah.
And then
I think Prince Michael is Blanket, but yeah,
And then
I don't know. I'm
there's
confused.
a little girl, and the little girl is like old enough to be in the media now. She's like an adult, and like I saw on that Crazy Days and Nights that they're like tricking her out or something like that.
Well, and what's his name? Cappy was having a feud with her, accusing her of knowing about and being involved with the Seth Green stuff that he claims happened or is happening.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that too. That's weird. I never thought of Michael Jackson not being Michael Jackson. I'm almost disappointed now.
In yourself or him?
No, yeah, in the idea at all, like, because I know people are really critical of Michael Jackson, but I always saw him as like a true, like the epitome of their MK Ultra / charismatic manufactured god, that they pulled it off there like they never could anywhere. And it seemed to me like he was always still loving and kind and sure misled, and I don't believe that he was ever like a child molester or anything. I think he was completely stunted in his growth and was trying to have something like a childhood because he could afford it. I don't think he was, doesn't even mean he wasn't being inappropriate, but he wasn't like the way people think of like a predator, ooh, I'm going to get these kids, But I wonder, that makes me want to go back over all the photography now. Because it makes a lot more sense than that they actually, like there's this joke, I remember a comedian said that Michael Jackson is the epitome of the American dream. He was born a young black boy, a poor young black boy, and grew up to be a rich white woman.
Well, wasn't there a relative that was claiming that he and LaToya were the same person? Do you remember this?
That
happened years ago. I'm gonna look it up while you're thinking about it.
Yeah, okay. And maybe I'll just pull up some pictures of Michael here.
I mean, of course they're gonna look alike if they're related, but this guy I seem to recall was like a divorced person who had married into the family, and this was his expose. It was actually they're the same. So, and there was a point at which they both looked very much alike.
Yeah, I definitely remember them both looking a lot alike because LaToya was easy to remember because she's kind of wackadoo. And I think she became like a psychic like Miss Cleo or something something like that.
That's right. That's right. Well, and then, the weirdest thing actually, one of the things I'm seeing here is that the first thing that comes up in Google image search when I look for that is a picture of them looking similar, but it's like they both had plastic surgery by the same surgeon deliberately to look the same. Because like they both had their faces changed dramatically, and yet now they're at least in these sets of pictures that look very similar. So this reminds me of I'm sure the Bruce or Caitlyn Jenner stuff was on the list, right? Okay, so there's a guy who's obsessed with Cindy Crawford and obviously went to the plastic surgeon and said, "Make me look like Cindy Crawford," and now people can't tell the difference between the two of them. Yeah. And I seriously wondered aloud if maybe there isn't a difference,
Yeah, and I definitely saw that similarity with that cover on the magazine and all the exposure, even as much as we try and duck media. I don't like sit around watching TV, but you still get it, it still comes across your feed. And it's like, oh my God, he's trying to look like Cindy Crawford, because that's like our era of the supermodel. I don't even know who, popular supermodels are nowadays. I just remember Cindy Crawford.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's like if there isn't some complicity going on here, then I feel sorry for her in a way, because like apparently you can't copyright your face, and apparently someone else can just make themselves look like you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Oh yeah, that makes me think of that woman that tried to make herself look like a lion. She kind of looks like the Bogdanovs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, this is something I was thinking about after the show about the Bogdanovs. I was just thinking a lot of people who get too much plastic surgery end up looking exactly that way.
Yeah.
This is just something that happens.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly, like a botched Cabbage Patch Kid. They look all puffy.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about this. Can you see that? I don't know how fast it transitions. Do you want me to screen share to you, Tracy? Or would you prefer
Yeah,
to look
sure.
at us? Here, I'll screen share to you just in case it's easier for share screen. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Share. So here's a picture. This is a little bit off topic, but here's a picture of Michael Jackson looking a lot like an Egyptian statue. And I've seen the similar theory with the Obamas too, that at least with Barack Obama, that he
Akhenaten.
yeah, Akhenaten, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's still in the same vein because it's a bloodline theory, right? Like the idea is that these super powerful bloodlines, that they seed and or manage us not just from the top and with a hidden hand, but that they, of course, are going to disperse spies and agents. And some of this is the way I romanticize it in my brain. Like it's the wily young prince. He's not ready to be married or settle down or like count the stacks of gold coins or whatever he has to do over at his secret island. So instead, he's like, screw this, and he throws on his costume and he's like, I'm David Duke or whatever, And then, like with Bowie, that might be true. And then he's like, I've been at this long enough. I think I'm done. And so he kills himself off, interviews himself on the out, and it's a tip of the hat. And back to talk to mom and dad who are now 178 and have been really missing him. Or whatever.
Yeah.
They all share a glass of blood wine and talk about how successful it was. Or
Well, the whole thing is told in metaphor in The Man Who Fell to Earth, because
Yeah.
he's got a family on the other side that he eventually, he longs to return to, and I guess at the end of that movie he doesn't ever get to, but at the end of the story of the David Bowie life, he does. I don't know. A lot of people thought David Bowie wasn't dead, and
I don't.
I was inclined to believe that as anything because, if you could fake your death and not have to become weak and ugly on camera, not have to age in the public eye, why wouldn't you just take that option, So I think he's definitely a guy that could afford that. If nothing else, even if he wasn't a fake person entirely, the fact that he could just afford to make, his death into whatever event he wants it to be, I think he would take that option,
Yeah, and he always seemed like a kind of immortal type anyway. Like even in his old age, he didn't look like someone who'd gotten really old. I mean, even as much as people love Sean Connery at least looks old. He doesn't look like 007 anymore. Bowie just looked wrinkly, and other than that, almost exactly the same still, And I popped up these pictures of, if you haven't seen it, folks, there's a good clip of Jack Steven being interviewed about...
Jack Stevens is like, is he a rock musician or something? Or
rock producer?
Rock journalist?
Yeah, rock journalist / producer, like rock and roll insider. And so they chose him as the person to interview about Bowie's death. But if you look at, like... I was trying to, this is a pretty good... I think this is really... See, I think that's really Jack Steven there. That doesn't look like Bowie to me.
It kind of does.
Or this picture here.
Yeah, that one's really him. Supposedly.
So, let's see one more. So that's the same guy there, I think. That looks like Bowie with a wig on. And then, this is another perfect example. I mean, how could you say that's not... That's the same. The nose, the mouth, it's the same. And they hit his great big ears with that bad wig.
Well, I don't know if this stuff exists anymore, but it used to be. Facebook was always shoving its facial recognition on people, and if you uploaded a picture, it would immediately try to figure out who that person was in the picture.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that tool in a while, but it seemed to me like using something like that would be the perfect way to verify any of this. Just the machines would know.
Oh
if
yeah,
it's the
that's
same person or not.
that's another one. Me and Jim covered this in a past episode, but I'm not afraid to go back to it. There's some video clips of people claiming that George Bush Jr. and help me out.
Charlie
Mitch.
Manson.
Thank you. Yeah, and Charlie Manson are the same guy, and there's software where you can upload a picture comparison, and no shit, Bush Jr. and Charlie Manson come up as a 93% match.
93. There's
Yes,
that number
93.
again.
93.
And if you play, maybe we'll do it a little bit later, but if you play a clip of Manson talking after you've seeded the idea into your brain that it's Bush Jr., it's just like, gives me the EBGBs, like, oh my God, it sounds just like him. And maybe it's not the same guy, but maybe they're like cousins or, really close in the bloodline.
Brothers, half brothers, perhaps.
Well, the Bushes are suspected of having some involvement with a serial killer cult. There's this one, I think it's called Matamoros or something like that. It was a gang, a Mexican gang that was also involved in satanic rituals and stuff. Kind of like the Mexican gangs now are into Santa Muerte, where they worship death and being evil, but they're still Catholics. But these guys were just Satanists. And so they would do a lot of stuff right by the border, and a lot of stuff in Texas and places like that too, right? On our side of the border, in terms of kidnapping people and killing them. And they did drug running and things like that. And so anyway, Henry Lucas always said that he had a connection with them. And Henry Lucas oddly got his death sentence commuted by George Bush when he was the governor there. And then Jeb Bush commuted the sentence of the other guy who was his accomplice, who was on trial in Florida. So it was like the Bushes specifically got involved in protecting these guys, and then they were, blabbing their mouths off about how they were involved in this huge ring that it was, important people were involved in, and they were going to be protected by the government. This is what both of these guys, Henry Lucas and his partner in serial killing, told journalists whenever they would be interviewed. And it was all just sort of dismissed because they confessed to lots more murders than what they were charged with. And so everybody just thought that they were bragging and stuff. But I thought it was kind of believable. And, Henry Lucas has this face where he looks like, like half of it is kind of damaged and one of his eyes is drooping down. But I don't know. It looks like he's part of the family. He looks like he's one of these genetic deformities. Like when they inbreed a little too much, one of these guys comes out. And you can see. Look at.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
look at him as a Bush possibly,
fade this
especially
up.
the one on the left. Like, what if he's some just a illegitimate child of one of the Bushes?
This looks a lot like Jeb to me. I mean, that looks pretty similar to Jeb.
Yes,
Now check this out. I popped up the other guy. The leader of the gang you were talking about. They're called the Matamoros, or it was right up here on the screen. There it is. Is that it?
Okay,
Matamoros?
that's the town that they were in. That's right. Okay, so the name of the thing is something else.
The guy's name is Adolfo, and to me, he looks pretty bushy to me too.
Yeah, he does.
That looks pretty bushy to me.
Right in the eyes.
Wow.
So that's a trip.
And they do have some of the. Remember when George H.W. Bush had bragged about the little brown ones in their family?
No, I don't think I ever heard that. Really, there's a clip of Bush Senior bragging about the brown ones.
Yes, he was talking about his grandchildren and how much he loved them and loved seeing them, especially the little brown ones.
I know that that his wife so famously said during the huge hurricane there in Louisiana that this is probably the greatest opportunity to happen to the black people in the state of Louisiana in a long time. Like, they're all flooded out, literally dying in the Kingdom. And she's like, what a great opportunity for them. Like, what are you talking about?
God. Yes,
So
there have been so many amazing
strange.
Bush moments, including George Sr. possibly shooting, or being not shooting, but being involved with the death of JFK.
Yeah, that's a huge. There's a lot of weight to that theory if you read it. I don't remember if it was Michael Collins Piper's book, But I think that's where I got the information that his nickname in the CIA was Ice Pick. Pretty sure it was from that whole thread from the JFK Bush thread. Is that
Bush's nickname was Ice Pick?
Supposedly, yeah. Bush Senior's nickname was Ice Pick.
Wow.
And have you seen the pictures of him like with his 77 military Baphomet hat on?
Oh, can you find that
Yes, I did. I think I saw that in William Ramsey's book.
Yeah. William Ramsey's amazing. His research is pretty damn solid. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna pop up real easy. I'm not gonna chase it for too long. But yeah, that picture is just disturbing. Of him with his...
could you show?
Go ahead.
Could you show people the Roger Stone versus John Roselli comparison that I sent you a while back? Do you want me to resend it?
Oh no, I'll look. I'm sorry. I've got to use two different browsers here, so maybe I'll just...
Yeah, take your time. Plus, you're showing the hat, so. But anyway.
Yeah, if it was right here, I'd click it. But yeah, if you search a little bit, especially if you type William Ramsey Bush Senior 77, folks, it'll pop right up if you want to see it. But it's like, it looks, I don't know if it is a goat or not. It's kind of blurry. But he definitely chose 77 as his number, and like supposedly in Thelema, that's like a self-perfected man or something. I've never looked that up, but that's...
I'm gonna go get the book right now while you're...
Cool. Okay. Yeah, and I'll
talking.
grab this other link from the Twitters. Maybe I'm gonna. Let's see. I'm gonna go back to our home screen so I don't accidentally show any details, and just I'm gonna pop Twitter open here in the browser, the Safari.
Do you want to run memes
Oh, I could.
for a minute?
I'll let you guys have those memes back for just a second. Give you the memes back for just a second, because I'm gonna try and log into my Twitter from this other account. That's where you dropped the link, right, Tracy?
Oh yeah, I put it on Twitter.
Okay, so I just had it open in the other browser, and so if I just sign in over here, then maybe I can save myself the hassle. So
yeah, William Ramsey is one of the guys that writes about Barbara Bush being Aleister Crowley's, I think, daughter is what directly, right? I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And he has a story that works out about who the mother was and how it happened. So I think he had a pretty good case to make there. Plus the fact that they look almost identical. And of course we know Bush did 9/11, so that's a satanic thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, my God, the whole ritual of the kids reading about the kite has to hit steel with the My Pet Goat book and everything, like with Bush Jr. sitting in the classroom, they're like doing this reading exercise that's like, it's a black magic ritual of them they're calling and incanting the planes into the buildings.
We should play that one too.
Is crazy.
Definitely crazy.
So now you're talking about this video here, right? That's the last thing you sent me is a video. Oh wait, no.
Oh, the comparison of John Roselli and Roger Stone, which I sent like a couple days ago, or yesterday, I think.
Oh, so
but I can resend it if you like.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Just that way I'm not taking too long.
And it comes up in the conversation here because Roger Stone wrote a book about George Bush being involved with the murder of JFK, and he looks just like this guy, John Roselli, who was accused of being involved with it as well, and it actually was said to be the shooter by a lot of people, said to be the shooter hiding in the storm drain, the one that actually made the fatal shot. And
yeah, that sounds really familiar. I knew these names sounded familiar for a reason. That's why, because he's the one that they say he's the real killer.
Yeah, he was a mobster, and he's kind of he was involved with Hollywood too. He was a producer for a while, and I'm sure there's a character playing him on the JFK movie. But darn it, I just saved it to my desktop, and then where is it? Give me a sec, I'll find it. But yeah, so again, this is like there's a big time difference there. So I don't think they're the same person, but they dress the same. They kind of have the same attitude, even I would say. So it's kind of like this might be his, secretly some kind of relative of his, and who's, ironically playing a role where he outs some of the real killers of JFK, for whatever reason, for whatever strategic reason they want us to know a little bit about it now.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, so if we were at the very tip top where we had everything at our fingertips, we would know to what degree things really panned out, like how much people really are genetically similar, how many different types and styles of faces there are, and all these character and personality traits. Any of us that have done like the little like the ENFP and INFJ tests and any of those kind of tests, we all know that people can be hashed down into categories. You can take tests online for free or just start to train yourself with the type A versus type B personality. So I figure if you go all the way to the tip top, you've got that down like to a true science where you know what person to put in a position, especially if it's of the same bloodline, to trigger, look, act, and be just as similar. So it might not be that they're the same guy, but this is just this was part of the plan or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think the similarity is meant to evoke the other guy, and to, it's just kind of just a test to see who's going to notice.
Yeah.
So I just sent you the picture.
Yeah, but I'm just opening in a new tab, and I'm going to switch over now as soon as it loads.
All right.
Oh, it jumped. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's down there.
Weird.
This
one. We don't need that. Sorry, folks, a little slow here. Was it that one, you think, Jim? Does it go from the bottom up?
Yeah.
Okay, so. That's all right. I'll just risk my DMs being exposed here, because as long as I don't click back, this should show it. So here's the picture, folks, that Tracy's talking about. And
No, that's not it. Oh.
That's it, right? Oh. Ha! I'm screwing up, folks. I gotta get back to the right one. That should do it. I took you back to the meme. Sorry about that. So here, the top left here, that's definitely Roger Stone.
Oh, you're right. I'm going to get back to the window so I can see what you're doing. Yeah, the one on the left and the one in the middle, those are Roger Stone. The one on the right is Roselli. And then most of the ones on the left bottom are Roselli. The top hat.
Yeah,
the one where he looks like the penguin. That's
Stone, right?
Stone. Yeah.
They do
and then
look
the
a
stone
lot
in the
alike. That nose,
in the bottom right corner.
That nose is really distinctive.
Yeah. The way their hairlines have receded. And then he's definitely copying this gangster look, this 40s gangster look. And Roselli was, producing gangster flicks too, to kind of glamorize the lifestyle that he was actually in. I think he might have been the guy who was involved with kidnapping Sammy Davis. We told the story about that a few shows ago.
Yeah. So that was Roselli?
I think so. There's like a handful of these guys that all knew each other. They were all involved with the plot to kill Castro, and then they seem to have switched. A lot of them seem to have switched somehow to killing JFK and being involved with that. And they were also involved with Hollywood and the Rat Pack, that aspect of the music industry. And they were running it like a racket, and pushing people around, telling people what to do. It seems like, the more I learn about Hollywood, it just seems like a lot of these films are just slush funds, to wash money that's dirty, the money that was involved in drug dealing and human trafficking.
Absolutely.
And
I agree with that wholeheartedly, because it doesn't make any sense, some of this crap that they put out. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
They spend so much money on these productions, and some of them just come and go. A lot of them never make any money. They're horribly stupid.
Yeah, that movie Jupiter Ascending that I was telling you guys about. I like it because it's full of occult weird nonsense, but the movie itself doesn't track very well. The lead actors are essentially dolts. They're a couple of dumbasses, so it's really hard to take them seriously. And if you go look up, it's like it was almost in the top 5 most expensive movies of all time or something. I don't remember. It was like $300 million more.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was crazy how much money. And of course they've got the Wachowskis, one transitioned and one not, and they're standing there talking about it like, well, it really didn't do that well, but it's okay. We had such a good time. It's like, yeah, right, man. If I gave you 175 million on top of somebody else's 175 million, I would be expecting some results. So obviously the plans for that money isn't because we're making a big fancy Hollywood movie. It's a whole bunch of other stuff, just like government and everything else, People say, how could a tarp cost $1 million? Well, easy.
So I thought you're, what was it, Jim, who sent me the stuff about KRS-One?
Oh, yeah.
That was shocking. I mean, I could tell like KRS-One looked like a woman the last few times I watched him, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
And
you actually have a person to connect it to.
There's
who's known for something else.
Do you remember her name, Jim?
Yeah, I don't.
Tarana Burke.
Tarana Burke.
Is it T-E-R?
Tarana. And the last name Burke.
So if you don't know, folks, KRS-One's a really famous rapper, big time in the rap game from way back. And I think, Jim, you found this one, didn't you? Or you were
I think it was Jason James Bickford.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
brought it to my attention.
So that's Polarization Nation on YouTube. He's really in deep on the decoding and comparing, and he even thinks that some of these people are like other entities wearing masks. Like he calls them Archons wearing masks. But so it's really far out. I mean, I love Jason James Bickford, but it is not for your novice, bored conspiracy, curious person. It's like off the deep end, but these right here, I don't know how big those are on the screen. Let's see, those look a lot alike. This, and then look at, she's got her eye half open. Why do their faces always look weird? So the nose, KRS-One's nose is so distinct.
So the Tarana person, she's connected to one of the movements, right? One of the social movements.
Yeah, I think the Me Too.
Black Lives Matter.
Is it Me Too?
Or is it Black?
Let's see if we can get a bio on her.
Oh, I think you said it was Me Too, right?
Yeah, it says. So yeah, this article, that's funny. I'm not going to click on it, but the headline is, yes, #MeToo founder Tarana Burke does look like rapper KRS-One. So it's in the press as like, you're right, they kind of look a lot alike. Like,
oh, get over it.
Yeah. Whoop, whoop. It's the sound of the police. I was trying to think of another line to go with it that would be about Me Too, but... So there,
is that one of KRS-One's songs?
Yeah, that's why I did that, because that's probably the most noticeable, most famous song that people would know of KRS-One. His name stands for knowledge... Oh, I can't remember. I used to know it. Like KRS-One stands for something like really deeply philosophical. They call him the teacher, or like the wise teacher, or the prophet. Like he started a whole hip hop church. Like, and he's from way back. What happened with KRS-One was he was kind of involved in the gangstery violence promoting rap before it was popular. And the guy that he was most famous for rapping with got shot to death in a drive-by. So then he reversed his position and decided to preach like intelligence, love, independence, and like, positivity, bring a message of positivity instead. And that's, but I'm talking like the middle 80s. That was probably like 83, 86.
Okay.
But that nose, how could you say that that's not the, I mean, look at that nose, and now let's find this lady again. Where is it? Oh.
Looks like she has an appliance on it, a little bit.
And the complexion.
If it was the same
person. Are you showing this to the public too?
Oh man, I'm just showing Tracy. I'm sorry, you guys.
How long's that been going on?
That's a great question. We'll just have to reboot. Let's start over.
My whole life.
So what I was talking about was how similar their noses are, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for keeping you out of the loop here.
Seriously though, tell us how long that's been going on. Like, what haven't you seen that we've been talking about this whole time?
Yeah, somebody chime in the chat and let me know, because I know I've been switching back and forth quite a bit, so hopefully not too long. But if you missed something and you want me to go back and show some pictures, please correct me, because I'm not reading the chat. The chat from where I'm sitting is too small to really see, so I'm just kind of... Jim usually helps me with the chat.
Okay.
The chat's kind of following along a little bit.
But another thing I was going to say, if you guys have never seen the clip of KRS-One is on video, like he's sitting with a bunch of young people and he's talking about... he's just talking about like secret history in general, and somebody asks him about the Illuminati, and he totally claims, or no, they ask him about Masons. Do you remember?
I think so.
Have you ever seen that clip, Tracy?
No.
Row your boat.
Yeah. He sings "Row, row, row your boat" and tells them that essentially he says that the Illuminati are the good guys and not the bad guys, and that he's not a Mason. He never joined the Masons, but they made him an honorary 33rd degree Mason. And let's see if we can find it. Let's throw that up.
Wow. I did not know.
I mean, it's a pretty bold clip. It tripped me out, because I always kind of liked KRS-One.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he was supposed to be one of the good guys.
So this is 12 minutes. I don't know if we want to let the whole thing roll, but let's see where we get with it here.
Wow.
America.
Okay.
Hello, Abe.
Ads.
Per mile car insurance from Metro Mile.
No Metro Miles for us, please. All right.
Question. You were speaking about why haven't they killed you yet?
We're getting a little bit of lag here.
It's infiltrated hip hop, and a lot of people say like Jay-Z, Kanye West, they have affiliations with that. And when you reach a certain level in hip hop, that they approach you. I'm wondering if anybody has approached you on that, if you're working with them, because some people I've heard say they believe KRS-One is a Mason or something like that. And if you didn't mind speaking on that, and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, where do I start? No, I'm not a Mason. Let's start there. I studied Freemasonry, though.
Mm-hmm.
Studied for about 20, coming up on 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Studied Freemasonry. I've known Freemasons all my life.
Mm-hmm.
They trust me with their secrets. They trust me with their symbols. They trust me with their knowledge.
They shouldn't.
I'm considered a 33-degree Master Mason, but I'm not a Mason. I'm sort of what you would call an honorary member because I understand the truth. Masonry is not the Illuminati. Freemasonry is, or was, it originally started off as what science would be called today. Back in the days, there were several sects that knew the truth, and they would put that truth into whatever craft they were practicing at the time. So first you have men and women that make boats, and they make these boats to sail. So they create what is called maritime law, the law of the sea. And there's a gentleman named Jason Whitley, as well as Jordan Maxwell, that speaks, actually Jordan Maxwell speaks extensively on this, that in an ancient sense, those who made ships would put spiritual knowledge into the concept of shipbuilding. So you would get God as a ship. God's inner would be the hull, the mind is the sails, and we are on the stage of life sailing, sort of like an old Freemason or Masonic poem is row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. That's the secret if you can comprehend what I just said. But the point is that secrets are put into the craft of the teacher. The teacher does not blatantly tell you, this is the truth. You won't even understand it. What the teacher does is put the truth in the craft that the teacher is practicing. So you have shipbuilding, and you get this whole philosophy, which is really all of Egyptian mythology based on ships, water, because that was their craft, that was what that was. Then you go a little further down, and you get, actually, right here in California, on Wilshire Boulevard, there's a major Masonic temple there, and on the outside of the temple, they show you the Pharaoh Akhenaten handing over to a Greek philosopher the truth. And that Greek philosopher handing it off to someone else, and that's right there on Wilshire Boulevard. You should go look at it.
Word.
This is where Freemasons get their knowledge handed to them from the Pharaoh of Egypt, Akhenaten, who is one of the special pharaohs, because Akhenaten is the one that didn't believe in the old Egyptian ways. He said there is a new way to approach God, and told everybody that God was the Son. And we're not going to get into Christianity and all of that later, but this was first Akhenaten. Now, I mentioned all of that just to draw a wedge between Freemasonry and Illuminati. The Illuminati is a different group. May have been part of, some of them may have been Freemasons, but Freemasonry is about the building of man as Solomon's temple. As Solomon builds his temple, this is how you should be building yourself. And as you, as one of Solomon's temples, you are also building the world to be a better place. That's Freemasonry. Illuminati is a group of scientists that were against the church, and the church was against them. Some 1700 17th century philosophers called themselves the illuminated ones, the ones who bring light into the world. They were scientists that were saying basically that the Bible is not the whole truth. That like a guy like Sir Francis Bacon, who everybody believes is the true writer for Shakespeare. Francis Bacon, actually there's a movie coming out October 28th called Anonymous.
Shakespeare was a fraud. Or
that Shakespeare was a fraud. This is a Masonic lore that's getting ready to be revealed. But this guy Francis Bacon.
I'm gonna hold him up right there because we're about halfway. How does that fit with? I consider you pretty damn knowledgeable about Freemasonry, Tracy. So what is there anything specifically that you would immediately contradict KRS-One on in his explanation right there? Oh, your mic's not on.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what he's bringing up about Francis Bacon and Shakespeare fits right in with what we're talking about. Like, there's a example of a similar type of hoax that was perpetrated, and for similar reasons, like you were saying. And we're getting back. I'm tying what he said back to our main premise here, which is that the elite like to put on a little show for you, and it is all a big ritual. It has some kind of symbolic meaning to it, and it involves having people play characters for the public eye. And yeah, Shakespeare would have been one of them, and I think he was probably a conglomerate of several people, but like Ben Jonson being one of them, Francis Bacon being another, John Dee quite likely being another.
Yeah.
And in regards to Bacon, there's a guy who was, just what we were describing before, an illegitimate son of the crown, really. And this is what he's famous for is what he was able to do with his life. You know, he was a genius, and he wrote a bunch of really interesting books, and you know, basically came up with a lot of the mythos or the ideas behind the, you know, what they presented as the discovery of America, and then the creation of the United States of America. You know, a lot of that, the symbolism of that is directly coming from Francis Bacon's works, like the New Atlantis, you know. But then he's also involved in Shakespeare's stuff, which had, you know, Shakespeare's work had a lot to do with really the creation of the English language the way it is now. So it's like that, you know, the Shakespeare mythos really impacted the mind of the English speaking world, and in particular here in America, really. And yeah, it was all something plotted behind the scenes, I think, by the elite, you know. And they had a quasi-Masonic entity that was connected to the crown back then, called well, there was the Royal Society, and then there was a more ambiguous thing that was kind of a Rosicrucian organization called they called it the Invisible College, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's
Because you get to go
like
to the Invisible College, and you have to serve 13 years, and then you have a choice to either stay in or leave, and there's like the pictures I remember finding, illustrations of the Invisible College kind of look like Howl's Moving Castle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that kind of ties into L. Frank Baum, the writer from The Wizard of Oz. There's kind of similar things hinted at in his work, and there's a really funny character called the highly magnified Wogglebug, who's like this overly verbose, highly intelligent, you know, bug. He's supposed to be a bug, and it makes me think of Jeremy from Yellow Submarine too. Similar characters.
Yes.
But I guess the thing I would say about KRS-One, he kind of waffles at the beginning there. He's like, I'm definitely not a Mason, but I'm an honorary 33rd degree Mason. Like, well, how come you didn't just say yes, but it's honorary from the beginning instead of saying no? And then the reason I figure this ties in is because, okay, we're comparing him to a woman who is apparently the person who first brought out the whole Me Too thing.
Wow.
Which is a huge explosion still going on now of all this. To me, it's a way to muddy the water. And if he's an honorary Mason, then why wouldn't they be like, yo, Chris, we trust you. You want to put on this weave right here and get out here and get this thing started for us? And he's like, all right, cool, I'll do it. You know, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
And then, you know, the other person that's involved in bringing that out to the public was that Ronan Farrow character, who we've mentioned might be the illegitimate child of Frank Sinatra. And I just came across a picture. My computer's being really slow right now, so I'm having a hard time finding it. I'm about to send it to you. And it's a picture of a guy who is apparently Frank Sinatra Jr.'s illegitimate child that he ignored his whole life, but is, I think, successfully suing the family to get some kind of recognition and maybe some money now. But anyway, so here I'm going to drop it. I found it. Here I'm going to drop it in your Twitter right now. This is a picture of that kid. And then you compare this picture of who's the grandchild, the illegitimate grandchild of Frank Sinatra, and compare this guy's face with Ronan Farrow. I mean, you can tell that they're both children of Frank Sinatra. And frankly, I mean, this guy has the Irish thing going on too. He looks just like Ronan.
Yeah, so I've got him up on the screen here, and I'm going to switch to another window and type in Ronan Farrow. Spelled his name wrong. But
And what is a Ronin? A masterless samurai?
Yeah, that's true. But that's a lot of I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Let's see if I can go back. I mean, that's like family. That's like different pages on the family album, right? Like...
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it could be the same kid.
Yeah, it really does. And that makes me think of the whole Talon News, Jeff Gannon, what was the kid's name?
Was it Guckard?
Yeah, Jeff Cannon.
Johnny
was-
Gosch.
Johnny Gosch, yeah.
Yeah, the idea that they keep recycling people. I wanted to, before we move completely on, I wanted to hear this lady's voice. I don't think I've ever heard her talk, so I'm going to click...
Chimera?
Yeah.
Tirana or whatever. What's her name?
It looks like
Let's suppose
Tarwana.
that you're
Yeah,
writing a really important email to a
Tarana.
colleague.
Let an AI learn grammar instead of learning it yourself.
Watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon.
Oh my goodness. Where's the lady? Here we go.
Founder Tarana Burke. Tarana Burke joins me now from Los Angeles. It's good to see you again, and I have to say, it's always a big deal to go to something like that, but what an extraordinary thing to see for you, someone who for years, who has been behind this movement. Can you even put into words what it meant to you last night?
It's really difficult. I mean, last night was something I could never have imagined 10 or 12 years ago when we started doing this work.
Her left eye is all jacked up. So to me, that would be pretty damn tough to... I don't think there's any way in hell that's KRS-One talking. Right? I mean, that's just... I mean, you can imitate people and be good at impressions, but his voice is so powerful and distinct. Especially as a... You know, it's well known because he's a rapper, and that's what he does, is he works with his voice. So maybe they're like sister and brother or cousin. Maybe that's the whole thing, is that it's like they've got us confused on whether or not people are playing more than one role versus whether or not they've got people waiting in the wings. And it's just one more family member, one more cousin, one more sister down the line.
Yeah.
Even in this where I paused it, I mean, it looks like KRS-One.
It does.
So much like him. So strange.
He brought up Akhenaten, and Akhenaten, you know, we mentioned, you know, some people think, well, like Freeman thinks that he is the same as Obama, or that they're, you know, clones or something. But there's another guy who, you know, people have thought is a historical character that is the same as another historical character also. So Sigmund Freud wrote a whole book about how he thought that Moses was the same person as Akhenaten.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I didn't know Freud wrote a whole book on it. Interesting.
Yeah, it's called, it's right here, Moses and Monotheism.
Keep that up, and I'm going to put it to the bigger screen in case other people want to check it. So let's... Moses and Monotheism by Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
He's got the horns. There's Moses' horns.
Exactly, yeah. He's got, the brain horns poking out there. Have you seen the movie From Beyond that's based on the H.P. Lovecraft story?
No, I don't think so, no.
They have a machine that stimulates the growth of your pineal gland, and it makes it grow so much that it starts to poke out of your head.
Oh, wow. Is that an old black and white movie?
Is what?
Is it an old black and white movie?
No, it's from the 80s. It has that guy, I think Jeffrey Combs, that guy who's always in the Lovecraft-based movies and a lot of the horror movies.
So it makes you have a horn when your pineal gland grows out?
He says it's called From Beyond?
Yeah, it's called From Beyond. It's based on this Lovecraft story that they took a lot of liberty with for the movie, but the story is about stimulating the growth of the pineal gland, and it makes the person they can see all these things that normally you can't see, that are actually there, but you just don't have the eyes to see it. But because the pineal gland is the third eye, and it actually is photoreceptive. In the movie and in the story, the concept is that you could stimulate it and make it grow, and then you would actually see all of the hidden things. You would see Mount Analog, you'd be able to see the other dimensions.
Yeah, so the picture I put up on the screen is really funny. This guy's a real dickhead.
Which I'm not seeing.
I gotta switch. I gotta help these people out here. Go to shared commentary. There we go. This, I don't know if I can make it any bigger.
Oh yeah. Yes.
But this is definitely the movie, huh?
Oh yeah, that's the movie. And so, the reason
What
why
in the
Moses was
world?
shown on.
Is that the same movie? No, this is something else.
That's it. That's it.
It looks like a picture show meme.
Yes, we should make it one. But yeah, so the thing about Moses getting horns, it's all. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should just recap it quickly for the audience. But like, supposedly, when he came down from the mountain and caught everybody doing the calf ritual, he became so angry that these horns popped out of his head. Or that's one interpretation of the line and how it's read. And then some people interpret it as light coming out of his beams of light coming out of his head.
Right.
You'll see it depicted one way or the other in old religious art. And I think it's they probably represent the same thing, whether it's actual horns or horns of light. It's also the other thing that was said about Moses was that his face was glowing when he came down. So and I brought my statue to bring it a little bit closer.
Yeah, there you go. Have you seen that, Jim? I think that's the one that's in Rome. I think because I saw it in person.
Oh wow!
Yeah, this is based on a Michelangelo where it shows Moses with horns, and he really looks the same as you've seen some other statues of Zeus and stuff. He looks very similar to that too.
Can you put him back in the screen again?
Oh yeah, sorry.
He looks like he's got kitty cat ears.
Yeah, that's funny. Moses with the bunny ears.
There. Oh. Whatever.
So I was looking at my list
Sorry to
here.
frame up the shot. There. Anyway, Moses, yeah.
So, like a really popular one is Alex Jones's Bill Hicks.
I thought that's fantastic in a way. I mean, it's really
compelling if you've never looked at it, and there's a lot of information online about it. That once again, Jason James Bickford of Polarization Nation, he had a documentary called Shill Bill that was all about it, and it was really, his production values are really good, but they knock his stuff down off the web all the time. So
no, really?
Yeah. Well, either they do or he's pretending that they do, because people do that. I tend to trust Jason James Bickford because he's similar to us three, that he's published his ID and just blocked out his home address and birth date. Like he's showed, like he's sat there with the camera pointing straight down and sorted through his mail. He challenges other accounts to go into their comments and their internal YouTube. Like he will switch to display screen and go into his YouTube and show you how he can't get into his comments, show you how he can't block AI or shill accounts, show you how he can't access things, show you what his real numbers are, and then accuse other people like Russian Vids and other similar accounts. Like if they did this, it would all be paid for traffic. That's that's his claim. So I mean, to me, that's like way beyond the pale for being bold. Like no, I've never seen anybody do that. I've never seen anybody say like, look, here's the dashboard of my YouTube. I'm gonna click on everything and show you how much of a hassle it is for me to use it because they've got it all messed up. They've like flashed his iPads and stuff so that all of his data gets dropped and shit over and over again. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if he is a shill, he's the best in the business because he's so genuine.
Well, the thing about Hicks and Jones that I thought was so convincing is the fact that they're both they're being handled by the same marketing company.
Yeah, and the
goes
guy
back for ages.
The main guy, like Bill Hicks's best friend, is like Alex Jones's agent or promoter or whatever.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name, but
it's like Sacred Cow Productions, I think.
Shared commentary.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just not on top of the stuff today as good as I usually am for some reason.
I feel totally exhausted today, and I saw a lot of other people saying similar things. I could barely get out of bed.
Yeah, I felt tired all day, and I had some dental work yesterday, so that had me on the ropes a little bit. I mean, it all went well, but just getting a tooth pulled or messing with the dentist always makes you feel crappy.
Yeah.
But I mean, these pictures here, like the the teeth stuff in that documentary, I wonder if it's still up there. I'm not going to try and find it because it's long, but Shill Bill, Polarization Nation Shill Bill, like he does a comparison of the bottom rows of teeth that are just shocking. Like, do you see it up there anywhere, Jim?
Oh no, I was just thinking those pictures are pretty
Yeah,
insane.
I mean, like all of these are pretty insane. Like,
Yeah, I think it's a good case for sure. Because, I mean, Alex Jones, who I like a lot, actually, especially I used to like him a lot more. You know, it got kind of boring after he took on all of the vitamin and supplement pills as his sponsors. I just got, and also when he got all Trumpy, you know.
Yeah, well, he kind of, I think that was his whole thing, right? Was to go way, way far out as you could get, and then when it's the right time to bring it back to center and like chill out, so that you cast this wide net. I think that's what Alex Jones's job was. There's a great thing I'll tag you on Twitter if I didn't already. It's linked from Steve Outram once again, but it was like a 2-hour broadcast of these two guys talking about how they had uncovered direct connections between Alex Jones and intelligence work, and how, you know, it doesn't surprise me, of course. And
Well, and then in his divorce proceedings, you know, that was his defense in order to keep his wife from taking his kids away, was that he's a performance artist.
yeah, he's an actor.
Yeah, which, you know, okay, think about it too with Trump, right? What was he involved in before he was doing what he's doing now? Well, yeah, he had a bunch of TV shows, and particularly he was involved in WWE, which is all about pretending that people are fighting, pretending that people are at odds with each other, which is the same metaphor that Jesse Ventura, who's from that world, always makes about politics, is that they pretend that there's a good guy and a bad guy and they're fighting each other, but it's all scripted and they all work for the same company and they all hang out at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good metaphor for what has to be going on with Donald Trump, because he was hanging out with all these people before he ran for president. You know?
There's photography of them all like totally hobnobbing.
Yes.
All of
And
them. I mean, Epstein, the Clintons, all of them.
And it's like, it doesn't reflect as badly on him, I think, now as it does on everybody else, because, like, with the exception of CNN, you know, he's not necessarily going around dissing everyone he ever played golf with, but everybody he ever played golf with has to diss him, because that's what expected, I guess.
Yeah, that's what was on the a la carte menu this year and last and the year before. So here's, I'm going to point this back out. Here's the teeth picture I was talking about. So to me, that's pretty trippy. Like, you know, if one of those is supposed to, the black and white is obviously Bill Hicks. I mean, I was a pretty big Bill Hicks fan. If I didn't think it would flag us, I would totally play Bill Hicks' piece on marketing right now, because it's so funny. Him talking about how all marketing people should kill themselves. And it's really, like, if you've never seen it, folks, it's really funny. But
yeah, those are the same teeth.
Yeah, it's just identical. And the thing about the Shill Bill documentary is that he lays out the case with the same promoter / handler guy. I just can't think of his name, but it shows him way back.
Oh, they're buddies.
Yeah,
they're like best friends.
They're like Bill
his
Hicks
producer.
and his producer would like take mushrooms together and hang out, and then
they were there at Waco, Texas.
Yeah,
together.
they showed him at Waco, Texas, like at the very beginning of Alex Jones' career. So Bill Hicks has quote unquote died, and then they've got Alex Jones really young in Waco, like before he's done the whole Bohemian Grove thing.
I think actually one time his producer, I forget what his name is, but he presented Alex Jones with a framed photograph of Bill Hicks as an award.
Yeah.
And they kind of laughed together.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's like there's also a clip of Bill Hicks before he died talking about how hard he'd been working to try and become a successful comedian and a successful writer, and then how he's like, so finally they landed me this show, it's going to be great, and then like he pretty much describes his Alex Jones character. He's like, I'm going to like totally be a right winger and could rally the troops and, you know, like do this whole thing, and they're going to pay me a whole bunch of money and it's in the bag. Like I said, what do I have to do? And they're like, nothing, just sign the contract. And he's like, that's it? You know, like, it's crazy. Like, it's almost word for word. It's worth searching it out, even if you have to torrent it, folks. Shill Bill is the name of it. It's out there somewhere because I know too many people downloaded and re-uploaded it. But Shill Bill is amazing. So have you heard that Rush Limbaugh is the singer from The Doors, Jim Morrison?
Whoa, no, I have not. That's new. Okay.
And to me, that one kind of makes sense because Rush Limbaugh can't hear. You know, if you're an old rock and roller standing on stage, you know, there's a chance that you might need a cochlear implant. And there's also a chance that you might say fuck it and get strung out on heroin again.
Yeah. Who's the...
So that's this picture I always found compelling.
Are you showing a picture now? Because we're not seeing anything.
Back. Yep, there we go. Yeah, don't be afraid to whip me hard in the neck if I'm doing it wrong, guys. Sean, click the button, you big dummy.
I still don't see anything. I don't know what the delay is, how long, but...
It's not there for you?
There we go.
Okay.
All right, now we see it. Wow. I don't think I'd ever seen Fat Jim either.
Yeah, I remember at the end of his career, like, he was claiming that he was eating a lot of fried chicken and stuff. And it's actually in one of his Backdoor Man song. I eat more chicken than any man ever seen. I remember that. So
reminds me of that Jerry Lee Lewis song, Meat Man.
Yeah, I remember that song.
Is it working?
Yeah, it seems to be working.
Okay.
He definitely has the reptilian eyes there.
Now wait, is this supposed to be... Whoa, I didn't realize... This is supposedly Jim Morrison on the left.
Oh, wow. What? Really?
It's a... Yeah.
Like before he grew his hair long?
Yeah, like in high school or something. And if you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, like all of the rock stars you've ever heard of are all directly tied into military intelligence through their parents. Like the Dave McGowan evidence and plus other people expounding on it. And that's another thing, like David Crosby. Let's look at David Crosby's real name in his history. Check this out. This is crazy. His real name is like so royalty, it's not even funny.
Okay.
Where is it? I thought it was like the third, too. Pretty sure it's supposed to be like the third. But I remember in the Dave McGowan book, like the history of David Crosby and especially of Stephen Stills. Like Stephen Stills claimed to be in Vietnam before the war was popularized in the press. Like claimed to be in Vietnam in like 1959 or something like that. And everyone's like,
wow.
Oh, he must have just misspoke or something. And then you go look at it, and he's supposed to be like a recon insider, like intel guy. Like so he would have actually been there. If he was like a Special Forces Green Beret type, Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, this isn't giving as much information. The reason I remember is David Crosby's name being so weird is because I was at my friend's house and he had Alexa, and I was asking it all these questions, and it like listed off more information than's on this Wikipedia page about David Crosby. Like. It's a fun thing to do, folks, if you have an Alexa, to just ask it things like, who's Craig Venter, who is David Crosby, because the information you get is different than what you'll get with a Google search. It'll just start spouting facts.
I found a video about Bowie and the other guy, Duke.
Oh, cool,
So
okay.
I just sent it to you if you
Yeah, let's roll it.
care to.
Let's roll it, because I
I
was
haven't
surprised.
screened it. Like I saved it in my notes a long time ago, and
Okay.
so I forget what's in it. But
So let's. I'm gonna open it in a new tab because of.
oh wait, maybe you know what? Don't stream it. Don't stream it. No, don't stream it.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
Stop. This isn't what I thought it was.
Okay.
So don't. It'll just be a bunch of stuff about Bowie, and I'll bore the shit out of us, and then we'll probably get tagged too for.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought we were seeing the brainwashing and the conditioning is working. Like, hey, play that song. Like, no, don't. We'll lose our channel. Don't touch the button.
Exactly.
Oh, let's do
Well,
that.
because It really sucked that one time. I mean, I apologize too. Like, I won't do that again. I hope I have the instincts to be able to avoid it. The time a couple shows ago when you had to struggle to get the archive back up for number 33 because we played, 5 or 10 minutes of, it was supposed to be, a video about Devo that tied directly into what we were talking about, that didn't harm their record sales at all, but they took down the whole 5-hour video because of that. And I don't know how you finally got it back. It is back now, right?
It is back, entirety. And the thing is that the dispute, for one thing, okay, this is a good FYI for anybody that's got videos on there. Okay, so you get the little warning. There's a difference between like just a notice and then there's a notice of them flagging your video and maybe pulling it down so that it's not being broadcast versus a strike. And I don't have, as far as I know, I don't have any strikes on my channel. A strike is like a really big deal. If we got a strike, then if you get 3 of them, you get your channel pulled completely. And if they struck us this week, God forbid, then like we wouldn't be able to live stream for 3 months or something like that. So there's all these little steps in the process. But what we got wasn't that. They flagged it mainly because of the video, the actual images of the video, and the songs they were just going to monetize. And so, yeah, it's really confusing. And it was CBS Universal, I think, or NBC Universal, and then another company was claiming ownership of the audio. But the thing is, folks, if you have a YouTube channel and this happens, if you fight it and just write in the little comment box that, hey, this is fair use, we're commenting on it, we're using it under the grounds of fair use. You might want to glance at fair use to make sure that you're not wrong. And obviously, if you're actually trying to pirate or use it wrong, then you shouldn't disagree with it. But usually they'll review it and then let it go because it is under fair use. We were talking about a book about cannibalism and eating brains and how Devo was not only influenced by it, but named their band after it. And the video footage and the songs were literally directly in relation to that. And we were commentating over it while we were watching it. So they can't really argue that we're trying to profit off of or use their music. It's like we're using it in a college lecture or something,
Yeah. I wonder about these companies, and I wonder what their motivation is. But I guess they backed down from it, so it's probably just a robot, just a robot tag.
It is, and that's right after that. That's when I found that that stuff popping up that this guy had his video on private. It was his own video, like he wasn't playing anything. I don't remember what it was about, but they still flagged him in private on his own video and knocked his video down in private, and he had to go fight it. And YouTube, he was a huge YouTuber. I don't remember his name, but he got YouTube to reply to him in a comments thread on Twitter by tagging YouTube creators account or whatever it is, But it is the AI. That's what the YouTube creators account that came back. That's officially part of YouTube, specifically for people like us. They came back and said, hey, crap, we're sorry. Sometimes the robot messes up. As soon as it does, if we can figure it out, we undo it right away, so.
Well, at least they said something to you. Like, whenever that happens to me, they never say anything. It's like one day I noticed that the video is back.
No, yeah, what I'm saying is they said that to this huge YouTuber. They did send me an email, but I have my emails set so that they definitely notify me when they come into my phone. So they may have sent you emails if they ever flagged your stuff, but God only knows if you don't have the email account right to where it's telling you, you might have to go back and find some old email that you set it up with. Like I have stuff like that too. My Facebook, like I never go to the email it's set up on. So if it sent me a message, I would never know. But, so here's a picture of JFK's Jimmy Carter. This is another compelling and interesting theory if you guys have never seen it. So there's a JFK's ear perfectly superimposed over Carter's head.
Wow.
And this was another one I got from Polarization Nation. Now there's a site called Well Aware. This is the Well Aware. This is coming from the Well Aware site here. And this guy's name, he Texas Goldbug or something like that. Like he's a pretty controversial character. Like people,
they have the same bags under their eyes.
There was better pictures I was looking. It's always so funny that like this. I mean, there you go. That's pretty. This is Carter on the left, JFK on the right.
Is that Jimmy Carter on the left?
Pretty sure.
Looks like JFK.
Pretty sure that's Jimmy Carter on the left.
No, I think that both of those are.
Oh, maybe these are all JFK and these
Yeah.
are all Jimmy Carter. Maybe you're right. I think this is the plan with a lot of this stuff. Like, have you noticed how there's some channels that are just saying they think absolutely everyone is trans in Hollywood, like
Yes.
without
It's really
exception.
annoying.
You know, and then you'll see like all of these that we've shown are pretty. At least they're compelling and interesting, but there's definitely ones where people say this person is that person. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you know, it's like it's
Well,
not even close. Like, you know,
Where one actor is another actor?
yeah.
Yeah.
The Kavanaugh thing was fascinating, I thought,
Yeah.
that you brought up.
Yeah. Do you remember what the channel was, Jim? The video was on.
I think the Morgile.
The Morgiles Kavanaugh video was pretty amazing. It really was. Especially with Jim, it was you or Tracy that brought up that they have the Supreme Court ritual, and like he goes and picks up an egg with his butt and has to drop it in the cup
from Family Guy.
Yeah. So like the idea, folks, with this one was that this was Jim's addition to the idea. The Morgile has an awesome video. Maybe I'll pull it up. Of Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford, the woman accusing him of sexual misconduct, are the same person. And so Jim's idea was that this was the hazing ritual that Kavanaugh had to go through to demonstrate himself to be good enough to actually take his position on the Supreme Court. Like, well, if you really want...
humiliation ritual.
Yeah, it's a humiliation ritual. So you really want this? Okay, well then you have to not only be under the duress of being accused of being a rapist, but you also have to be the woman accusing yourself and go defend yourself against her on national television live. I mean, it sounds so crazy, but I mean, if you study all these occult groups, this is the kind of weird shit they've always done. Like, there's always this weird, crazy, liminal ritual to get to the other side, where now you're in. Like you said, Tracy, I think it's in your Baphomet book, talking about for super high up in the OTO, like they drug you and then take you away somewhere, and all of your most beloved peers are all buggering you somewhere in a room, like, welcome to the club, you know? Like, we knocked you out with some Rohypnol, and now it's your turn in the barrel, or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard about. Need to be clear about these things, because sometimes these people get upset, and they're still going to get upset. But yeah, this is what I have heard from what I consider to be a reliable source about the AA, which is like the thing that's right on top of the OTO, that that is a higher level. So yeah, and I think I mentioned, like, there's a video of Angelina Jolie talking about this, and she doesn't identify them as AA, but it's she's describing the same sort of ritual. So yeah, I think even though it's becoming, it's probably one of these limited hangout things where they send out a bunch of trolls to go out and say that everybody is some kind of tranny, and that, you know, everybody is the opposite of whatever they claim to be. Every famous person, you know, and you wonder, like, well, why would everybody do that? You know, why would they do that? Why would everybody do that? But I don't necessarily believe it in every case, but I do think that, you know, maybe there's quite a lot of it going on. And I was talking to Chris Knowles actually today on the phone. He was pointing out some sources that are saying that the Mithraic, or not the Mithraic so much, but the Kybel type rituals that I've talked about in some of my books and essays, where the cult of Kybel was ruled by priests that were actually, or priestesses that were just castrated men. And it seems like from the description of the position that they're in, that they're kind of, you know, sacred prostitutes from that point on.
Right.
For Kybel. And so Knowles was saying, well, there's some sources that will tell you that that's kind of what was going on throughout the whole ancient world, which I think is true, because, like, definitely in Sumeria they had the priesthood of Inanna, and her priest, it was the same thing, and the word is almost the same. The Gala is the name for their priestesses that were actually castrated men. So, you know, I've written in my books about money, that the first money coined was for use for the sacred prostitutes of Ishtar in Babylon.
Right.
And that you would bring a coin to the temple and donate it, and it had usually a picture of a bushel of wheat on it. This is where the word shekel comes from, because shekel means, I think, wheat or something like that. So the first shekels were used in this temple. But the thing is, it was supposed to let you buy the services of the temple prostitutes. Knowles was telling me, hey, I think that they were, they were castrated men, just like the priestesses of the Kybel cult, and that, that's who you're paying to have, to visit. That's who the sacred prostitute is, really.
Yeah.
So
and it's in the Bible too.
It's in the Bible?
Yeah, like I don't remember if I think it's in the books of Chronicles, but in the Old Testament, and it comes up again and again in the Old Testament. It's either in Chronicles or in Judges or in Kings or in both or all three. But there's this whole, I think it's in Chronicles, because it does it king after king after king, talking about how the problem is homosexual ritual prostitution, and how this king either manages it effectively or not, and then they move on to the next generation, and it's like, he didn't smash the idols. He didn't stop the homosexual prostitution ring. They were still sacrificing to Baal. And then, one king will come along and he'll be like, he did smash the idols and he fought against the homosexual cult and he was a good king. And so if you've never seen that, Tracy, I'll try and find the scripture. I mean, it's more than one. I've found whole books written about it. I've just never read them about that, because back then, I didn't think of it the way you're describing it now. I just thought of it more like what we thought of the Templars, not including trans sexuality or, the idea of castration and then, appearing to be female. Because that's is it Mithras, or it's his mother, like she killed him and felt bad, or castrated him, felt bad, brought him back as a woman. Isn't that right?
Well, that was Attis specifically, but Attis wears a Phrygian cap just like Mithras does, and there's other things having to do with Mithras's biography that make it seem like he is the same person as Attis, and that there's a connection there that I think maybe Mithras was definitely a child of Kybel. That's what it seems like the story is.
Right.
Because when he grew up and he wanted to have a son of his own, he hated women. And so the way he did it was he magically somehow inseminated a stone, and then and his child sprang from that. And Kybel was considered to be a rock. She herself was a rock. So
rock and roll.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that Attis is like an aspect of the Mithras character, and that they both kind of represent the same thing, and that even though historians like to say that they think the Mithras cult and the Kybel cult were totally separate, in fact, a lot of times their temples were back to back, right next to each other, and there's records of the Kybel cult performing some of the sacrifices for the Mithras cult, because the Mithraeums were very small and they didn't have room to do all that stuff. But it was built into the design of the Kybel temples. They're there for slaughtering a bull and everyone being drenched with the blood. So it seems like these two things were connected. These two cults. One of them is all castrated men. That's the Kybel cult. And then the Mithras cult is just all men, but they do have a rank, the second rank. There's I think 7 ranks, and each one is dedicated to one of the planets. But the second one, which is dedicated to Venus, the ritual that they have for inducting the person into that rite involves them dressing like a woman and getting married to one of the other guys. Having a rite of marriage.
Right.
So
makes me think of the traditional kind of rock and rollish photo of a man, and a woman standing there, and they turn around and it's a man in a wedding dress with a huge beard. Like it was in an Aerosmith video, and I've seen it a few other ways. It also makes me think. It makes me think of Shakespeare and acting, about how back in the day all of the actors were both. That seems to all tie together to me.
And then, the castrati singers too. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder how much wasn't a lot of that singing done for the church?
Had to have been.
That could be wrong,
There really, I can't imagine it would be outside of the church because that didn't exist then. You know, there was no secular society. Johann Sebastian Bach wrote all of his music for the church. Period. There wasn't really. I mean, there might have been, but it wouldn't have been popular. You're not going to be singing at the opera house without the permission of the Pope.
So I think that we're just what we know about this stuff. We just know the vestiges and what was what's been left over in the histories that have been partially cleansed, partially just jumbled up so that people would be confused. But we can still see hints of what the real mysteries are there, and the odd things that seem to tie together all of the religions, including all of the offshoot and heretical sects as well. And basically, the heretical sects are just the ones that are practicing what the inner hierarchy of the mainstream religions are doing in secret.
Yeah, they're not hiding it. That's why they're heretics. Because as soon as you're found out, then you have to be dismissed or demonized. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys something else. Okay, this popped into my head when you said that the Mithraeum and the Kybele temples would be back to back, right?
Yes.
So we've all heard of Discord, the server where we even considered getting a Discord, right? Well, I heard today, and I knew this already, but I didn't think about it, that there's a parallel service to Discord, and it's called Slack. So
Slack?
Slack. Like, so you've got the Discordians and the Subgeniuses, and they've also got their temples back to back. Because Slack is the religion of Bob, and Discord is the religion of, it's Eros and the Apple and Robert Anton Wilson. So it was just like, it just clicked. Like, oh, you guys are still doing it. You just don't have to put any bricks down or make any real things. You just have your little temple and put them back to back.
Wow.
It's a trip. So let's promote Tracy one more time here. So tell us about this book a little bit, Tracy. We'll take this is going to be a commercial break for the Merovingian mythos and the mystery of René Le Chateau. So how many books did you write before you got to this one?
No, this was the first book that I wrote. Merovingian mythos, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch over where people can see me real quick. A little bit better.
Yeah, when I stopped doing the Daggerbird's Revenge, I wrote a book that was encompassing the research I had done about the bloodlines of Europe and the theories claiming that they are the real origin of the Jesus bloodline, and that that there are a lot of other reasons why Jesus was considered important besides what is presented in the Bible, having to do with his genealogy. And I mean, I would say, I definitely want to bring that book back to print at some point. I have so much more to say about those subjects, though, than I did back then, I mean,
I'm
I see
excited
it in such
to
a
read
different
this
light
one
now.
for that reason, because I feel like we've gone over so much stuff that no matter what's in here, it wouldn't have read the same as even, because I think the very first book I read of yours was the Money book, Money Grows on the Tree of Knowledge.
Okay.
Because at that time you had an email list to join, and that came free if you opted in, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so I was hooked immediately because I'd already studied a lot of the money stuff, and to me that was taking it a step farther back than any of the other stuff. Like you were talking about Bill Still, the guy who did the Money Masters documentary. Like, they go way back in that documentary, and you can look up like Secrets of the Federal Reserve and Eustace Mullins, and that kind of goes back that way. But you're tying it directly to the money of the temple, and then now tying it also to Kybele, Mithras, and the idea of, I'd say it ties into the transsexual, like this kid who we're seeing all over the press right now, who's being danced and paraded around.
Yep. Yeah, that's a very disturbing story.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a photograph of him like with a male. It's a transvestite, like there's a better word for it when they perform, and they're wearing big bouffant wigs and makeup. I just can't think of the name.
Of a drag queen, you mean?
Yeah, thank you, drag queen. Yeah, so there's a picture of the drag queen is standing there with their genitals tucked, and they're completely naked. And this boy's 9 years old, and he's all dressed in drag, standing right next to him. I mean, they published the picture, just like came across my Twitter feed or whatever, and it wasn't like something to flag or like it was from some press release, from somebody's article or whatever. There's video. Me and Jim listened to something earlier last week of like the kid making the symbolic gesture of doing a bump of drugs, and he's hanging out. Yeah, he's hanging out with the guy. The main person that Desmond is amazing is hanging out with is that the damn murderer from the Party Monster movies. I mean, not the actor, the murderer, the guy that did his time for killing that drug dealer named Angel. I don't remember the man's name. But that's who this kid is hanging out with. Like, they're calling him the world's youngest club kid and all this stuff.
And they were talking about ketamine, and the kid goes like this.
Yeah, a bump of K. And the kid did that. And the gay guy that was with him was like, oh my gosh, you didn't really just do that. Like, you could tell he was disturbed. Like, he didn't like that was captured on camera. It was the reaction. Like, oh, you didn't even just pretend to do a bump. This little kid. And
wow.
I know that Hotep Jesus had commented on Twitter that this is where Rome was before it fell, which is right, which is true, and
if Rome fell,
according to the traditional history, right, quote unquote true. But I think that they are bringing this all back out this way because it is time again for the top of an empire. I don't think we're right at the peak of falling. I think we're at the peak where they're priming the pumps to celebrate and burn through all the funds and all, have a good time. Like, that's the way I see it. That they're ramping up it's the externalization of the hierarchy.
Time for Saturnalia.
Yeah, they're initiating the entire, not only all of the United States and the Western world, but essentially the whole world. They're just initiating us all into the cult. Like, ta-da, get ready, come on in, and we're going to show you how we used to party in just 99, I guess.
We were speaking of tucking, so I sent, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, the pictures of the Templars crossing their legs on the effigies of... Okay, so in like Temple Church in London, and then there's some other Knights Templar churches and graveyards where you can see effigies of the knights on top of the graves. And they're always depicted doing this. This is actually something that's associated with, well, I sent it to you in your Twitter.
Yep.
So it's associated, supposedly, according to historians, with someone who has been to the Holy Land, who has actually, done combat in the Crusades. So when they die, then they position their legs in a certain way on top of the effigy on their grave. And I also sent you a picture of Addis, the castrated one, Kybel's son, doing something similar. So yeah, I've thought for a couple years now that the reason why the Templars are doing this is because they're actually perpetuating the same Kybel cult, and that they may have actually gotten castrated right before they died, or some of them did. That it was a ritual that some of them were chosen to do, and they themselves chose to do it as part of their devotion to the cause.
Right.
And this would make sense if they were Gnostic heretics, which seems to be the case. And according to one of the church fathers writing about the Gnostic heretics contemporary to when they actually were around, he said that they were continuing the Kybel cult, and that's what was really at the heart of Gnosticism, was the religion of Magna Mater, the great mother. So
so is that the Kybeli art there? This one's the stone.
Yeah, that's Addis.
Okay, that's
he's
Addis.
Got castrated. Okay. He's holding himself.
Yeah, it hurts.
It's just, to me, it's the connection there is obvious. And then if you look at a picture of Baphomet, the way he was presented by Eliphas Levi, many years after the Templars, but this is the contemporary common image of Baphomet that we all see.
Yeah, the most popular one.
after writing a 600-page book about Baphomet and studying him for like 25 years, or about that long, it finally occurred to me that, oh wow, he doesn't even have a penis, and they're showing off his crotch, but there's no penis there. There's a tube where the penis should be. Well, the castrated priests of the Kybel cult, one of the things they would do, according to the descriptions, is they would put a little reed straw in, because they're giving them the full cast. It's not just
all
testicles,
the
but the
merchandise
penis
is
too.
being removed.
All the junk cut off, and so they stick a little straw in there, so that fluids could get out, and so that the hole wouldn't close up. And so to me, it's like they're showing that here with Baphomet, that he's got a straw there too, that he's one of the castrated ones.
I don't know why it's just not letting one of these blow up. I was trying to make one of these images.
Double click, maybe.
It's just not doing it.
No, well, see, okay, now if you look at some of the modern reproductions, you're not going to find that. They're going to show a big schlong there. But that's not the way it was originally depicted by Levi.
Right, and that's what I was trying to... I don't know why it's not letting these blow up here. Let's try that one and see if it does anything. Isn't that weird?
Huh.
And to me, this is just like a totally different concept. I'm going to talk while you're trying to figure that out. It's like, okay, a castrated person is totally different than a demon that truly possesses the attributes of both sexes. But of course, I mean, he's got breasts, and he's called the goat of 1,000 young. So there's a female, literally female aspect to him. But still, it's just a different thing. No one ever told me before that Baphomet was castrated. I just had to figure it out by connecting him to the Kybel cult. And it's amazing to me that all that stuff, I figured all this stuff out after I'd already written, with Alex Rivera, a 600-page book about Baphomet that I thought was about as comprehensive as you could get about this subject.
Yeah,
and then I missed this whole big thing,
Well, I would say, first and foremost, and as long as we're continuing to talk about things that Tracy and Alex did, I mean, there's the book, folks. This is like, to me, the most comprehensive. You guys are the most knowledgeable people in the world, in my opinion, about Baphomet. At least the most knowledgeable that are willing to talk about it. There might be people that have more information than you, but they're not talking. And the other thing I would point out along with this, what you just said, and I'm sorry, of course, no irony, no joke. The pictures of Baphomet won't blow up. I can't get them to click any bigger. I just opened them in a different tab. I did everything I can. They won't. So, we're getting Baphomet, So, in the beginning of the book, this book, I remember in the Adam, Cadmon, and Eve. No, it's not Eve. Is it Samael and Behemoth? The original, the universal man and woman, when they're separated, they're castrated, or the man is, and then they end up using something like a snake or a serpent as a go-between so that they can attempt to reunite. And if they were to successfully reunite, it would collapse the earth and the sky back into one. Right? Isn't that the story?
No, that's correct. Like this is me putting together several myths that are very similar, that are obviously telling the same story. So the Lilith and Samael thing, this is coming from Kabbalism, and they're saying that they call Lilith and Samael the original couple. They admit that Lilith was Adam's first wife, but there's also a rumor that Cain was fathered by Samael. So you get the idea that, like, this is the hermaphroditic demon doppelganger of the hermaphroditic pair that Adam and Eve originally were, because the Kabbalists will tell you that Adam and Eve were originally one thing, and it was originally a hermaphrodite.
Right.
And then when you read the Genesis, they tell a story about the creation of the man and the woman as one thing first, and then there's then it goes into chapter 2.
Yeah,
and
there's
they
two creation stories. Absolutely, two creation stories in Genesis.
So anyway, you definitely get this idea of Adam being a hermaphrodite that got split, but then the Kabbalists tell you the story even further, that actually there was this demon, and it was both a man and a woman, and it's like these two things were locked in a sexual embrace perpetually at first, and it gets a little bit confusing about how this story fits into a linear time frame, because you wonder, the story is sometimes told that they were producing so many demon children that those demons threatened to, they were consuming too much or something. It was gonna take over the universe somehow.
Right.
And so he had to separate them. And in the process of separating, so God had to separate them. In the process of doing so, the male got castrated, and then they're constantly longing for each other from that point onward. And yeah, like you said, the extra detail they throw in is that if they were ever allowed to sexually unite again, that it would destroy the universe, presumably because they'd be able to create more demon children again. But yes, there's a book. Anyway, it's a. Well, let me go get it. It's just right here. Hold on.
Okay. So yeah, we finally got old Baffy to jump up there.
Okay, so this guy's Andrei Orlov is the scholar's name, and he's writing about a bunch of apocryphal texts that he's been translating and interpreting. And so the reason why you see this picture of the snake entwined around the tree of the Garden of Eden there, and then the hands of Adam and Eve there, they're touching, and they're like right in front of the snake there, is because that's the scenario he describes, or he translates from out of these texts, is that the Azazel, who's this demon, this is the demon that's that the scapegoat in the scapegoat ritual that the priesthood of Israel used to do. Like they would sacrifice one goat to God and one goat to Azazel, so this is like the devil, or
right.
Another word for the devil. So, but he says that Azazel is the serpent, and the serpent is in between the couple that want to reunite, and he's what he's described is almost like he's being used as like a sex toy,
right,
he's some kind of he's a dildo that connects them. It allows Samael and Lilith to experience some kind of semblance of sexual union again, and then it's even though that's his role with that demon pair, it's also told, there's like this symbolism inferring that relationship has some kind of parallel with Adam and Eve too. So, you get the idea that whatever separated Samael and Lilith also separated Adam and Eve. Like these two things happened all at the same time, And I guess this type of creation from nothing that is being described in these biblical and extra biblical texts, we're talking about, the beginning of time. So I think that explains why when you try to plot these stories out and tell a linear narrative about what caused what to happen, it's impossible to do so, because they're describing several things happening at the same time as time is being birthed.
Yeah, it's before the beginning, so it's not, it's literally before the beginning. So so it's like, and it also makes me think of the idea of, well, of course, as above, so below comes to mind immediately. The idea that there's Adam and Eve, and somehow they have a shadow. That's what I was starting to say, that it's like Jungian shadow. It's like integrating the other, all of this symbolism that comes with all of the esoteric stuff, is that everything, we have a holy guardian angel, or we have some genius, the genie, the genius, all these things are like the shadow of you that you're supposed to get back in touch with. And so if Adam and Eve are originally hermaphroditic and they have a parallel to them that's the shadow version of themselves, so then when the whole thing comes apart and is separated, then of course it's going to get convoluted. It's already hard enough to understand the idea that there's an eternal hermaphroditic first creation that's going to be separated, let alone adding that there's also Peter Pan's shadow attached to it as well, you know, however you want to look at it, right?
And then so the Greek parallel story there tells that story exactly. You were saying, yeah, it's the in that version you've got the sky is the male and the earth is the female, but originally they were together and then they get separated, and there's the child involved, like they engender a child within them, and then it's when the child kind of cuts himself out of what would have been like a big blob, a big ball of these two entities locked together in sexual union, one impregnating the other. There was no way out except to cut his way out, and the figure that cut his way out was Saturn or Kronos. So that's the birth of time,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
And
you and Alex did a great show on that back in the day. It might even be more than a year ago now, because it's Oranos is in the title. I think it was on Alex's channel.
Yeah, and then strangely, when I was translating the Mysterium Baphometus text from 1818 from Hammer Purgstall, there's a picture that he found on the walls of what used to be a Templar church that looks like it's you would think it's just an illustration of the familiar story of Garden of Eden, and you've got the serpent there, but he really looks like a worm. And then you've got some guy holding a scythe there. And so again, if you're just having an orthodox interpretation, you'd think, oh, well, that's death, because the eating of the fruit in the Garden of Eden, that's what created death, or that's what brought it into the world. So yes, you can interpret that picture that way totally, and it all makes sense. But if you also throw into the mix the idea, well, this story is also really the story of Uranus and Gaia and the birth of Saturn, and the Saturn playing the equivalent role to the firstborn child Cain, then it's when Saturn is born that all this stuff happens all at the same time. And they're showing, the figure of death in that picture is the same as Saturn holding his scythe, you know? So it seems to me like all of these religions and all of these offshoot religions and heresies all still tell the same core stories. And they're strangely about the separation of some hermaphrodite figure, with two heads.
Yeah,
it's a very weird story.
The guy we interviewed about the hemp bill, he compares it all to DNA, and I find that really compelling too. That it's the XY, that it started not, people always want to anthropomorphize everything, but if it all started with just literally with DNA, then it makes sense that it was XY, and then they became separated, and sometimes you get XX and sometimes you get XY, so I find that pretty fascinating.
Yes.
I found a picture of Saturn on Alex's site. It looks like, is that? I thought that was the one you were talking about.
Well, this is a version of Saturn that's called Aeon, and he's always depicted with this lion face, and he's wrapped in a serpent, which I think has a very interesting parallel with the story of Osiris, who, when he died, supposedly his body was decomposing so badly, before he got resurrected really in the form of Horus. But when he was in the underworld for a long time, he had a serpent wrapped around him. The serpent was holding his body together so that all the pieces wouldn't just fall apart. But yeah, that picture that you just had up there of the Aeon Saturn, it's a very similar picture shows up in Mithraeans. In fact, that may even be a picture from a Mithraeum. So
Yeah, and
you
I
know,
know
they were worshiping. Mithras was Saturn to them,
right.
and then you know the highest degree in Mithraism was Pater, the father, and that was the high priest of each temple was the Pater, and he wore the big Smurf hat. But I think, you know, I just think it's the Catholic Church. You know, it's the same thing. It's like if you were to believe flamenco's contraction of history, so that a lot of things in history are really the same things as other things. Then yeah, the Catholic Church and the Mithraic temples, those were just they're the same thing.
Yeah, I think
the Templars were
you're
the same
right.
thing.
That's why when it became absolutely necessary to secret it, everyone that still was openly worshiping had to be killed and stomped out. All the Gnostics and all the sects that didn't keep their front up, you know, then they had to be turned on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was another thing when you said it's the Great Mother. Who were you talking about when you said that, Tracy? That they would worship the Great Mother?
Kybel is the Great Mother.
Right. So just so you guys know, in the communitarianism stuff that I'm always talking about, that's the secret religion behind all of it, is to go back and worship the Great Mother. Like there's a name Pachamama. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but Pachamama is like, I think it's from South America, but it's like it's kind of the same as the Green Man, only female. So you can see here's Pachamama. Here they're worshiping. So this is, if you look behind the communitarian law and all of the communitarian movement in the world, a huge part of it, like someplace they already gave citizenship or like human rights to a river, right? Like
Is it like Gaia?
yeah, it's the same as Gaia, very similar to Gaia, exactly. It's earth worship, but as the Great Mother, and not as like a universal concept, but as...
So they gave human rights to a river?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a river.
Well, you know, it all makes sense because Kybel was thought she was kind of the goddess of the state, you know?
Right.
And the way that, like, they trot out Queen Elizabeth now, all the regalia that they show with her, especially if she's in a vehicle being driven out, it looks very similar to the way that Kybel would be transported with her lions dragging her chariot. And sometimes they were beneath her feet, her lions. But so, yeah, she's the goddess of the state. And so if you look at all these depictions of a goddess that represents a country, like here we have Colombia, and the Statue of Liberty is another way of depicting that same figure. And in France they have Marianne, and in Britain they have Britannia. But these are all the same figure. And in France, you know, they always showed her with the Phrygian cap, Marianne, as the leader of the revolution, you know?
Right.
So now you find that cap, which is also called a liberty cap, it's used as heraldry, really, for a lot of state seals. So we have it on the seal of the U.S. Army, and it's in the seal of the Senate. And if you look at the flags and stuff of South America and a lot of the heraldry with some of the cities down there, you'll find lots of Phrygian caps, liberty caps.
Yeah.
Smurf
hats. I mean, and they are, and that and the fasces. If people have never noticed the fasces, the bundle of sticks with an axe attached to it, which is where the root of the word fascism comes from. If you look at the Lincoln Monument, he's got his hands on either side of it. If you look at the back of a dimes, it's all, these things all tie together, and they're all talismans when you put them on the money and on all this heraldry.
I think they're in the House of Representatives on either side of the...
Yeah.
There's fasci.
And here's that article, Tracy, that I just so people see I'm not losing my mind here. River gets human rights. They can sue to protect themselves. It's in New Zealand and Ecuador. It looks like more than one. Rivers with legal aspects of personhood open up new environmental battles. So this is communitarianism, folks. This is where this is all heading. They're going to combine, they're going to collapse the pillars of communism and capitalism into one system. If you look it up, people will mostly be saying in all the articles you find that it's actually just socialism or communism, but that's not true. They're taking the strongest aspects of what I would call monopoly capitalism and communism, and they're combining it into a brand new thing, and the legal system is already foundationally in place all over the world, and behind it all is back to goddess worship religion and back to magic. You're going to see magic before we're all dead. Magic's going to be back in the world like back in the day. Now they don't talk about any of that. You have to dig hard to find it, but the concept behind it is you have to equalize the rights of the individual versus the rights of the community, quote unquote. They don't really define the word community, but that's the core ideology, that we focused on individuality and individual rights too long, and we need to balance or harmonize, is another word they use, the rights back with the community. And what they mean is their concept of a global community, which includes things like giving robots citizenship, giving rivers the right to sue you if you throw a beer can in them, etc. So.
Well, it's important too, like the great goddess that they're talking about here, and the great mother is a castrated male.
Wow, yeah.
Or a castrated hermaphrodite. So what makes it a female is just the fact that the male aspect was taken away. And then how is it a mother? How does it produce? Well, it produces parthenogenically, which is why that cult is so similar to the cult of Mary. Is because it's the same story. Just like, I was reading from the Flamenco book a couple shows ago where he was describing how the ancient Roman cults of the goddess were, everything was the same as with Mary, the depiction of Mary and the story of Mary. And what was it, Athena? Yeah, he was describing a temple of Athena, and he was describing how it got repurposed, supposedly, to be a Christian church, and they didn't even have to change anything, including the names of everything. Right. It's like, well, okay, that's because they didn't change anything. They just told you a story about time passing that never actually happened.
Yeah, they just added some years.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's I don't know the truth about Jesus or anything, so I'm not trying to put anyone down if you think that he literally was born from a virgin, because I think that I'm totally willing to accept that sex magic does work and that you could produce a homunculus parthenogenically from a castrated hermaphrodite, which is what is being described actually in a lot of the really hardcore and secret sex magic rituals from the OTO and things that were written under Aleister Crowley's tutelage. He seems to be describing, well, he didn't have any qualms about it. He was very clear about that sex magic between men is the only thing that's really important, and you don't really need to do stuff with women, and they're kind of annoying, and then they get in the way. But they still occasionally utilize women in the order. But
right,
I'm gonna get so much hate mail about this, but look, I looked into all this stuff with an open mind and for years and years too. So, I know what I'm talking about, and there's just no doubt about it that this is what he was teaching. And not only that, it just fits in with what everybody seems to have been practicing throughout history. This is a male club, but sometimes they pretend to be women, or sometimes they alter themselves so that they are women. But it's so weird. What is the deal here with it? To me, it's weird that it's like a goddess religion, and yet they seem to actually hate women.
Well, yeah, that's what. Well, to me, that's the ultimate turnaround of the whole thing, right? Like, they can't get away from what I would call a natural reality. So the only way to do it is to fab it up to the farthest possible degree. Like, we can't actually just pretend like women don't exist. We can't pretend like there's no such thing as female. So instead, we put on the full garb of female to the maximum, up to and including castration and veneration of the castrate. It's just like, to me, it's just a perfect example of not admitting that you're wrong to the very, very farthest edge that you could take it, you know, like. Like.
So can I send you some images that I think go along with what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I was gonna throw this traditional picture of the homunculus on the screen just because you said it, and I love the. Have you seen this guy here with the great big mouth and great big hands? Do you know the story behind that?
I don't see what you're talking about here. I don't see it. Yeah.
Oh, it's not up there for you?
Okay, now I see it. Yeah. I think I've seen this, yes, but I forget about it. I don't remember. So tell me what it is.
This is his anatomy. His physical anatomy is blown up to represent the sensitivity when they like do hot, cold, sharp, dull tests and taste tests. So that this is how sensitive your body is. That your hands and your mouth and your lips and your eyes and everything are super more sensitive. But it's funny that this is all that comes up. I was gonna see if there was like any examples of. I mean, I don't want to say real homunculus, but like this is closer, folks, to. This is what Tracy's talking about when she's saying that men at the very, very highest degree and all of the different orders that you can study, they are creating sex magic to allegedly or potentially give birth to like a miniature human. Sometimes that's the, you know, it's not always that, but. I mean, if I'm wrong, please correct me. I mean, you're the more knowledgeable by far, but.
Well, no, I mean, it goes along with the Jewish stories about the golem creating something from clay and bringing it to life, and the way it's described sometimes, it's kind of specified that really that happens by pouring sperm on top of it. So that's one way to bring a golem to life. And there's other stories too about just you write the word, this is interesting, emit on it, and then you delete, because that means life supposedly. And when you delete the E, then it's met, which means death. But it's also very similar to the word, you know, metis, which is another word for this goddess, and it means wisdom. So the pictures I just sent you, I sent one, I'll send the other one real quick here. So I sent one with the Doris cup, which shows someone inside of a serpent's mouth. So whenever you get around to it.
Yep, I'm switching over to that right now.
That's cool.
So
Where's the other one?
That's really similar to the art on our poster, Jim.
Yeah, it's like a plate.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, Tracy, but the poster that I designed behind us, I yo-yo and Jem juggles, and the guy on my left is yo-yoing, and I think they're both Greek, and the guy on my right is juggling, and he's wearing a Phrygian cap. So that's the.
So yeah. Anyway, so this is supposedly a picture of. I'm getting an echo there. All right, this is supposedly a picture of Jason. Okay, so this is the way it's labeled, like in the museum that it's in, which I think this is a Vatican museum, but I could be wrong about that detail. But anyway, the way it's labeled in the museum is this is a depiction of Jacob, and I think they said that the woman on the side was Athena, and like this is depicting a story in the life of Jason that is not told. You know, we don't have this version of the story. You know, it's been lost. Like, so they think this is a scene from Jason and the Argonauts, you know, that story.
Right.
The Golden Fleece. But there's no scene like that in Jason and the Argonauts. Now, there's several scenes where he's fighting different monsters. But this scene here of him getting swallowed by this creature is not there. So, like, what makes them think this is Jason? I don't know, but, okay. Fominko says that he thinks the whole story of Jason and the Argonauts is just another copy of the story of the Crusades. And when they go for the Golden Fleece, they're really going to the Holy Land to conquer it.
They're going for Jerusalem.
Yeah. Okay. So now, you know, here's another image that this looks just like, of course, is the Biscione, the heraldic symbol of the Royal House of Milan, that a boy being swallowed by a snake. Well, the guy who wrote Mysterium Baphometus in the 1800s said that this image of the Biscioni showed up in a lot of the Templar churches that he was studying, and he thought it was a Gnostic symbol, and he even questioned whether the boy is going into or coming out of the serpent. And let's go back to what Fomenko, Anatoly Fomenko, the guy who believes that there was no Middle Ages and things like that, there was no ancient world. He says that he points out the similarities of the name Jason and Jesus, and also Jonas. I mean, it's like an anagram of Jonas.
Yeah.
And, well, there's pictures of Jonas, being swallowed by a whale that look identical to this.
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense that that's Jonas in the other picture. I pulled this other one up here with the this is a cool picture. I've never seen this one before.
Okay, so this is the one that's labeled Hercules and Hermione. And you just look what Hercules is wearing there. I mean...
Sure doesn't look like Hercules.
Of course, maybe they didn't have as much, archaeology as later in history, right? So maybe they just made everybody in the ancient stories, the depictions of these ancient stories look like the same people, or, look like a Middle Ages type people, knights in armor. But still, I mean, look, shouldn't they have had some clue of what they were talking about what the Greeks and Romans supposedly looked like and what they dressed like?
I think so.
But this is just one example. Like, you can find zillions of these.
How are we supposed to know it's Hercules? I mean, there's nothing that all art is symbology. You don't fail to put the symbols in there of what you're representing. You just don't. You can't,
Yeah.
If I'm going to draw a picture of the three of us, I'm going to have a pin clipped on the headphone for your headphones, because then we'll know it's us for sure.
That's really inside there.
That's a deep inside joke, folks. Join Plus Ultra, and a year from now we'll write an article all about it.
That's another thing we're promising that we're never going to do. That's not
necessarily true.
Anyway, I guess why go into all this these flamenco theories? Just for one thing, the the ancient symbolism of the transsexual hype and what do we call it, trend that is being pushed down our throats now is made obvious when he discusses the connections with the Templars and the Great Mother religion and the Gnostics, that these are all the same thing. And then just the fact that history is being so, I think Flamenco's right in general. Like, history is, it can't be, the chronology cannot be the same, because obviously there's so many stories that are the stories of the same people, but they're supposedly totally separated in time and even geography. So, it's like...
I wonder how many people know what you... Like, if you don't know what Tracy's talking about, folks, this guy is a mathematician who started delving into the chronology of history, and what he found was mathematical proof that people were... they were phantomly duplicated. So you've got the history of blank with whoever his prince is, whoever his head of the church is, whoever his wife is. And so it's like they made a copy paste and pushed it back in time, or they separated them into different geographical regions. He made this huge chart, like, of all of the different evidence that he found of it. You can find pictures of Flamenco standing in front of his chart. So if you don't know, that's what Tracy's talking about. And so then it casts doubt on the chronology of history, that once you really study it a little bit, you can't really retrieve yourself from it if you have an open mind, because it makes sense, and he's got the evidence to back it up. It's not just speculation. He says in his book, I'm not really speculating, I'm just trying to present you my evidence. There's some speculation at the end, but I'm trying to present the evidence, is what he disclaims his books with at the beginning, at least the ones that I've looked at. That's what he says.
I think that his theories would be more convincing, really, to somebody that studied history and tried to make sense of it than someone who hasn't, spent too much time on that subject. I mean, there's some people who are so entrenched in their particular subject of expertise, that they couldn't possibly consider this. They're emotionally married, I think, to what they already believe, that they can't consider this. But if you have ever like tried to figure out what came first in history and tried to figure out why figures, well, for instance, like why are there so many duplicates of the Jesus story? And so, the common understanding of that is, because Christianity's fake and they just copied all these other ancient religions. Well, but why are there so many copies of the same thing? Oh, well, that's just symbolism, that's just archetypes. But you find these archetypes matching up amongst people that are really supposed to be historical figures, and supposedly there's evidence of that. Although a lot of times the evidence is that's cited is a book that only exists in translation that we don't have the original of. So anyway, I think he's got a very good case, because I've said in previous shows, it just, once I actually read his stuff and understood what he was talking about, I realized, he's got a point there, and that just the fact that he has a point, which I don't think we'll ever figure out what the truth is, because it's just totally bungled up now. He likes to say, I'm presenting a new chronology, as though he's figured it out, but I mean, really, there's so much that you haven't figured out, and you never would. But at least you could tell yourself, it's okay that I can't figure it out, because
right. Well, it's mud in the water. Yeah, if you muddy the water, you don't get to unmuddy it. It's just the way it works. Yeah. And all the manuscripts that we think we rely on for ancient history, folks, were all written in the 1600s. They're all copies of copies from the 1600s, and the originals have either been destroyed or been lost, or big question mark, we don't know. And that's something you can verify for yourself pretty easily. That's they just don't tell you that in history class. They act as if they've got 10 million Rosetta Stones that they're copying off of or something, but that's not the case. And if you read the way that they did it, they are always saying that they're copying and amending, copying and correcting. So they're, whatever the original was, they wrote a new one, and they added new and different information, and then locked away or destroyed whatever was the original. Well, I'm not okay with that as far as having to rely on it for anything. Sorry.
So is anyone in the chat suggesting any other copies of people that they've noticed?
And I would say this still ties to what we're saying too, because we may well be seeing the same thing now being bandied about. Maybe that's why we're seeing people that we recognize as famous and potentially bloodlined, and they're still we're still seeing them in parallel roles in something similar to this idea of history.
Yes.
It's an act.
I'm trying. If you're wondering why I look so distracted, I'm trying to find these pictures that I ran actually in Dagobert's Revenge a long, long time ago, and they're Sumerian pictures of, supposedly Sumerian kings and stuff. But some of the soldiers in the pictures look like they're wearing armor, like medieval knights, and they even have an equilateral cross on one of these pictures. It looks just like a Templar cross. Huh. So if I can find these pictures, I'll present them. But
so just Jim handed me his phone, and I've got Krista. It looks like Krista Cox, Al Pacino, and Leonard Cohen. That's interesting. And Lavarella says Quetzalcoatl, another Visione. So that's interesting too. And
true.
Carrie Fisher and Millie Bobby. I've never heard of that one. Maybe we could look that up. And let's look at one more. Snake Jones says, you guys got it covered. I want to look up Carrie Fisher and Millie Bobby because I've never heard of that. Have you guys heard of that?
No. Oh, and I sent you the Adam Duritz one. We could throw that in at some point.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh, that made me think of a horribly disgusting Frank Zappa song I used to be able to play on the guitar. The lyrics are just so disgusting. Were you ever listen to Frank Zappa, Tracy?
You know what? I never really got into Zappa as much.
It's so hard if you're not a musician, especially. And even then, it's like, this is stupid. Why is it like rock and roll and jazz and circus music all at the same time with a commentary in a voice like this? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Blah. It's Frank Zappa's a weirdo.
Mocking himself.
He is. He's making fun of the whole scene. That's really Frank Zappa's job, is to like wag his tongue at the whole counterculture. And he was always pretty much pro-war through omission. He made fun of hippies and all of the anti-war protesters, and all of his music completely lampooned and mocked all of them and never said a negative thing about the war. And his father was a military chemical weapons engineer.
Well, there you go then.
But Christina Cox says Millie Bobby Brown is 11 from Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. So I see what they're so not the same person, but the same concept. We're talking about how similar they look. Yeah, I see it for sure.
Michael Duffalo says Copernicus and Kyle Kaepernick. LOL.
Whoa. Whoa. That's mind blowing. Even to consider the possibility.
Bringing the globe haircut back.
She found the pictures, cool. But yeah, this is definitely true. Millie Bobby Brown is number 11. That's her title in the show, right?
Her name, right?
Yeah, her name is 11. And she's very trans, in my opinion, like very androgynous. Because I mean, it was always a popular thing for people to be sexually androgynous. You know, androgyny. I feel like they've just like turned androgyny up to 11 in the last couple years. You know, that's funny. That wasn't intentional. I'm sorry.
Christina Cox says she's a boy.
Well, we don't know, do we? I mean, she definitely looks like a boy in this photograph here.
Oh, Harrison says Copernicus's actual non-Latinized name was Kaepernick.
That makes sense.
Wow.
So
yeah, it does, but yeah.
Oh, and JEM Tracy said something really interesting to me the other day that what do you remember the Latin name of the herb I was eating when I was over there with you? You told me, but it's like the
Mitra something.
Yeah, the green dye, the Latin name is like Mithras. It's like,
oh really?
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, I could look it up here.
No, did you send those other pictures? I was gonna throw them up here too. I was trying to get back to my Twitter and see if you.
Yeah, I got 3 of them sent, and I'm gonna send another 2, I think.
Okay, so.
What about the flat Earth haircut?
Is there one?
Flat Earth haircut. What does that mean?
Oh, sorry, Krista. I called her Christina.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they're all 4 there, and we're going to start with this Tartarian double eagle. I'm fading it over now. Remember how to make this a little bit bigger on the screen, Jen?
Flat top.
Oh, it's here. Huh.
You can go up to the view.
View. That's it. I'm gonna make it just a little bit bigger here, Tracy, so we can see it.
Go for it. So yeah, I mean, it looks like the heraldry of the House of Habsburg, or some European royal family there.
Flat top.
Well, so let me make sure this is on the screen here. I'm gonna move it over just a little bit.
But this is supposedly from Sumeria.
Right. I was already kind of into this stuff when we were at the London Museum, me and my girlfriend, and I was pointing out to her that the Sumerian stuff and the Egyptian stuff, as you're wandering from one section of the museum to the other, I told her this is all one nation, and they're telling us, oh, this is almost 1,000 years later or whatever. But if you take off the goggles of them commentating to you what it's supposed to be, it doesn't look dissimilar at all. The Sumer and Egyptian, and I've got to panel these back and forth when I change because I don't want to accidentally put my Twitter DMs up here. I don't know. I don't want to accidentally click on anything that's.
Sure.
So here's another one, and this is still supposed to be from Sumer, right?
Right.
And this is where you get consumerism from, folks. It's a con from Sumer. Seriously, I mean this is the same concept, the idea of them ruling the high seas and keeping you under something like a legal system. Now this is It looks like there's like a wolf or a dog.
We're not seeing it, by the way.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything since the double-headed eagle.
Okay. So here now I've got it up there.
So yeah, then there's the Templar cross there.
Yeah.
And the Merovingian bee floating up there above.
Oh, it's a bee, okay. And is this a coyote or a fox here?
I don't know what kind of animal that is. Yeah,
like
maybe.
a
Jackal.
Yeah. Oh wait, isn't ibis sometimes a dog? Gosh, what's the other name for him? Anubis.
Anubis.
Yeah.
So maybe this is Anubis.
Well, yeah, maybe. Supposedly the Egyptians came a little bit later, although there was some crossover. But,
Right.
L.A. Waddell thinks that who's allegedly, discredited now by accepted scholars, old Sumeriologist, old, Orientalist really is what they used to call him, but he thought that, the Sumerians were he thought the Sumerian kings were like these, superhuman things. I mean, he thought they were human, but it was just like that they were. He called them the Aryans. He thought that because the Aryan means noble, and back during his time, which was like the 1920s, he thought there were several people proposing this idea of these Aryan conquerors, and really they weren't like the Hitler Aryans. They're talking about like the race that used to populate Iran, which
Right.
Iran is named after.
Right.
And like the Indus Valley was supposedly, taken over and then civilized by these people. And I think that's something that's still acknowledged. That's who created that civilization. But then, Waddell thought that the Egyptians and the Sumerians and all these ancient high cultures really were. Had been taken over and recreated by this higher or more advanced race.
Yeah, but like a real master race, not like, hey, we think we're cool because we're white and we have blue eyes and blonde hair, but because we're physically and in every other way superior to you, including in size and height and intellect and ability. And it's back to the idea that the survivors of the cataclysm came with knowledge, and they taught us on the continents how to become industrious, like how to actually have industry and how to farm and how to make tools out of metal and all these, teach us magic and all this stuff, Because it's same Quetzalcoatl too, right? I mean, the idea of in South America, the tall blonde or redheaded giants came and taught us everything is the story, right?
Yes, and really, all the gods of the ancient world, each one of them was the patron of this or that. Well, a lot of these stories are very specific about he was the patron of Saturn is the patron of agriculture because he taught people how to use a plow. He was the inventor of the plow, they said, and they describe him as literally ruling over Italy at one point, that he was just sitting on the throne, telling people what to do. So
right, and the same with Mercury for communication and commerce, right?
Yes, yeah, and in fact, there's quite a few stories in the Middle East about Hermes being this ancient god king that same thing, taught civilization to people, and it just seems like there's in those stories there's a lot more detail to who this person was than the Greeks tell about Hermes and Mercury. Like they told this ancient history of Hermes, and then also his descendants ruling over Egypt too. There's tons of, and that's where a lot of these stories about Hermes come from, is Egypt.
So
but
did you want to commentate on this this more rougher sketch here? I mean, to me this looks like Don Quixote. I mean,
well, I just it's you see again the
cross.
I mean, that
is the most.
To me, that guy looks like he's got the a chainmail and armor and an armor helmet and all that.
Yeah,
and
he's got his light
an
armor
equilateral
on.
cross.
Yeah. This is
So he
supposed
looks
to
like
be.
a
This is
Templar.
supposed to be Sumerian.
Yeah.
Is that what kind of flower is that? Is that poppy?
I don't know.
It kind of looks like a poppy. So I'm gonna switch back one more and do the last one here, unless you sent more.
Oh, I don't know. I'll check. I think I sent you 5 total. So there's 2 more. But the thing in the next 2 is just you see the equilateral cross again. So you consider that actually in the second one you also have a crescent. Consider you've got these ancient, supposedly pre-Christian cultures using these Christian symbols and looking like medieval knights, and then you consider that the medieval knights had these Islamic symbols that they were flying. It makes no sense since they were supposedly the whole point of them being there was to fight Muslims. It was just history's a mess. It's a big mess.
It is, and it untangles it if you look at it the way we're talking about, because then now we don't have to have the Templars and the Assassins secretly teaming up behind everyone's back. They're just one group.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not a big secret occult ritual thing where they're outwardly. It's not like they're Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik anymore. They're just one group. And that's the same thing that Sophie lady from the New Earth channel, she points out that, you look at all the ancient art and the cross and the crescent are flying together in the same town across the street from it. Their temples are back to back, and it's not Christianity versus Islam. It's one universal thing.
Yeah. So, at what point did anybody know the truth about anything? Because, if we think about history, it seems like so easy now, especially after absorbing the information we've presented here, to see that there's no way to verify anything that we've been taught. And it would have been so easy for it all to be faked, really, because so much of it is what it's all based on is actually just a handful of things that fall apart when you look at them. So, you think about, okay, well, maybe everything in history was faked up until modern times because now we have, mass media, we can take photographs, and surely nobody could be lying as much about what's happening now. But actually, certainly in more recent history, it seems like it's more easy to fool people because you can just throw so much information at them to confuse them.
Yeah.
And you can present them with very well-crafted fakes. And, we have the technology now to fake these antiquities so much easier than people in the past. Did I talk about Mark Hoffman on a previous show?
I don't think so. That doesn't ring a bell.
The Mormon guy?
Oh no, yeah, I read the Mark Hoffman book, The Mormon Murders.
Yeah.
That guy. Wow, he was fabbing up all those documents in his basement and fooling. He had the whole Mormon church hierarchy at the tip top strung along with all these documents that he kept claiming to unarchive and find, and he was just making them all. He was buying ancient paper and studying alchemy to figure out how to make the right kind of ancient inks and using acids to age things.
Wow.
And when he got caught, he just started giving everybody boxes at their house full of explosives and blowing everybody up. It's crazy.
Wow.
I'll loan you the book, Jim, if you want it. It's amazing. Was that his name, Mark Hoffman? Was that it?
Yeah, I think he's still alive in prison.
Yeah,
and
we should write him
he
a
was
letter.
just this huge genius because he was able to flawlessly craft not just Mormon documents, but a lot of antiquities.
Everything.
So there's still a lot of stuff, there's things in numerous museums in Jerusalem where they're not sure if it's a Mark Hoffman fake or not. And one of the examples is that famous box, coffer, that supposedly has all the members of Jesus's family on it, including Mary Magdalene.
Oh, yeah.
So this was presented a few years ago as evidence that they were married, and that he was the biological son of Joseph and all this. But actually, that coffer is one of the things suspected of being a Mark Hoffman fake, and there's tons of them. And so just think, if that guy could do it, who? Anybody could do it. Anybody with that level of knowledge.
Was that the box that said "Brother of Jesus" on it or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was trying to see if it would just pop up, but yeah, that's I would say all of that goes hand in hand with the crap history that they tell us about in recent times, like, oh, the Iraqis are throwing babies out of the incubators and they're just stomping them, and you go back 100 or 50 years or 30 years and it's, oh, the Nazis are just bayoneting babies, you know. So they're always giving us this BS hoorah history, and there's Michelangelo himself was an artificer. His job before he became a famous artist and got funded and had someone paying him money to be who we know him as was to fake things. That was his job. People don't know that, but Michelangelo was a fake. That was his job, was to be a fraud. That's where he started. And if you read the history of it, they're like, and poor little Michelangelo when he was young, at first he had to start off pretending to be, you know, copy other people's work and sell it on the black market. But then he became amazing. It's like, no, he was just an artificer, because that's what art means. It means a copy of the real thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, regarding Mark Hoffman, it's funny that his motivation really was because the church was trying to obliterate history. And particularly, they were trying to get rid of the memory of the polygamy. And so what happened was, when they decided to get rid of polygamy, as a church doctrine, they kind of excommunicated and didn't recognize the validity of the marriages of, you know, many of their members that had, you know, that was their family. And they would say, oh, well, we're just going to ignore all of these people. You know, we'll choose which wife to recognize in each generation and ignore the others and all of their children.
Right.
And they had some way of dealing with it. But it was very harmful to the people involved, and he was hurt by that, like that his family records were being treated in this way. And, you know, especially in that religion, like, it's, your ancestry is very important, because you can baptize your ancestors. You know, you have a spiritual control over them. But if they're not, your ancestors aren't being recognized by the church, then you can't do that. And so he was very angry about that, and that's what motivated. That's why he wanted to get back at the church by faking all of these documents, some of which were meant to make the church look bad and make it, you know, well, it was meant to go along with what's already suspected about the church, which is that Joseph Smith was kind of a hoaxer and, you know, a con man who would go around like performing magic tricks for money, basically.
Yeah.
And the church was just, you know, finding the Mormon tablets. That was just one of his hoaxes that worked out really well. Well, and I think the story may be a bit more complicated than that. But one of the stories about Joseph Smith that the church was trying to get rid of, because they didn't want this image of Joseph Smith as a magician, you know, as a conjurer, as a practicer of the black arts. So the story of the finding of the tablets, some of the original versions of the story were that this white salamander appeared to him. A salamander in terms of like the fire being that, you know, magicians will conjure.
Right.
Not the little gecko-looking thing, but an actual salamander is like a fiery being, you know,
a phoenix, only a lizard,
being.
right? Yeah.
So anyway, this magical white salamander appeared to Joseph Smith and showed him, you know, where the tablets would be buried. And then the story got retold differently with the angel Moroni later. But
so they replaced the salamander with Moroni.
Huh?
So they replaced the salamander with the angel Moroni.
I think so. Or at one time, maybe both of those guys were in the original story, and then they just, they got rid of the salamander. So they didn't want the salamander, and so he concocted some documents about the salamander that would be embarrassing to the church, and presented them to the church elders as though these are historical documents that he came across in his search for antiquities. And because they didn't want the story to get out, they would buy them for thousands of dollars and put them in the vault. And that was his shtick.
So check out this picture here, Tracy. Like, there's the white salamander. You see it?
What's the salamander?
I don't know. I just typed in Joseph Smith white salamander, and I felt like the audience needed to see this picture.
Yeah, that looks like something else.
Like, what in the hell is that?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's
Whatever it is, it's not wearing its sacred Mormon underwear.
Oh wow.
So I'm gonna have to go here soon, guys.
Yeah, we can call it a show. This was great. I was really glad to pull this off. All the way till
But you
now,
have to show people Adam Duritz and Adam Richmond, please. It's very important to me.
Okay, did you
I resent it, so it should be just above the Sumerian. Oh, above the Knights Templar.
All right.
You rolled your eyes. You're like, God, why did she keep bringing this up? Because I thought it was really they're like dead ringers.
I know. I just must have.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
Then he's got the plate of voodoo donuts in front of him, so I just think it's a perfect picture.
No, I just lost my Twitter. It's okay. I'll find it here.
If you just go to the bottom and just scroll up to.
There it is.
And when I showed you the castrated Templars, right above that is the Duritz and Richmond.
I'll get back to it right now. I just it's just gonna take my Twitter. So I clicked on the tab that I had Twitter open in, so it's gonna take me just a second.
Sorry if I'm so demanding.
Oh no, we don't mind. This is fun.
Yeah.
I hope everyone's having fun. I'm having a great time. And I'd say we, for the most part, covered my list. If you've never looked up the Bush-Manson comparison, folks, that's well worth it. Yeah, that's about it. So I'd say we nailed it as far as pretty much staying on task and digressing the way Picture Show plus Ultra do.
Good for us. I'm glad that we're getting better at doing our job.
It is. I feel like we are getting on a roll. Like maybe there was a little bit of nervous anxiety at first, but I don't feel that way now. I feel pretty confident to pull this off. So here's Mark Richmond.
They're both Adams.
Oh, that's right. Adam Duritz and Adam Richmond. Now, I recognize the guy on the left as the most horrible singer of his era for oh God, I can't even think of the name of the band.
Mr. Chosen.
Yeah. Must be down this way, we are thinking about Mr. Jones. I could never change the station so fast as when this guy's voice came on. But who's the other guy? So who's Adam Richmond? Is he like one of these run around and eat everywhere people, or?
This is the guy from Man vs. Food. It's a show that used to be on like the Food Network or something. And those are voodoo donuts that he's holding there.
Yeah, and it's the terrifying weird man with his mouth open and a V-shaped. Oh, it's for verses. Okay, it's the V is for verses because it's man versus food. So man versus food. But yeah, they sure look a lot to me, a lot alike. Like, is it?
Yeah. You can the audience can search around on their own too. You just find more pictures of these guys and compare them. They look alike in almost every picture. So, and they've got, allegedly, they're different, from different places, different ages, a little bit separated in age, and they're also have supposedly different ethnicities. But I think they look totally alike, and both of them are named Adam, so, and Counting Crows was like, they hadn't done anything in a while when Man vs. Food came out, so I totally think it's possible that they're the same guy.
I mean, they're long since gone, and they were never so big that there's going to be like a huge demand for a comeback. If there is a comeback, it'll be like at a bar in Portland and not like in a stadium. So I'd like to think that anyway.
What?
I said I'd like to think that anyway because I hate Counting Crows.
Yeah, they really were not my favorite band either. And then I've heard some things about just what a crusty jerk he is. How he thinks he's so important and.
Yeah, it just makes me think of Runaway Train too by
Soul Asylum.
God, yeah, like now I'm kind of being haunted already. Like no. Well, we got past that part of my life. I don't want to hear Mr. Jones and Runaway Train. I'll do anything. All right, cool. Well, let's end it with Adam Duritz and Adam Richmond, and we'll just we'll make a plan for next week. I don't know what we've got planned.
I've got something. Let's see if he's confirmed. But yeah, I think we might have the guy from the Smurfy Code.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I need to watch that thing. Cool. I started to watch it and And one more time before we go, here's some a variety of Tracy Twyman books that we highly recommend. Clock Shavings is a memoir about Tracy's experiences with Baphomet on the Ouija board, and it is a terrifying and awesome read.
Thank you for that.
And this is in print. You can get this from Amazon.com. This is Baphomet, the Temple Mystery Unveiled. Tracy with her co-author Alex Rivera. And I call this like the encyclopedia of Baphomet and the Grail mythos. If you're obsessed with the Holy Grail and Baphomet and that kind of stuff, I would say this is a great place to dig into. And this is Tracy's only current published work of fiction, and this one's available right now too, right?
Are you holding up Genuflect?
Yeah, it's Genuflect. Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's my only fiction that I've done so far. So yeah, I think that it looks like the guy that did a video that I think like 900 people have viewed on YouTube, but it's a really great video called Does Smurfy Code. He's local here in Portland, which is close to where I am, and he's agreed, it seems, to be on the show next week if you agree. And so what this will be then, I think, is a lesson for the audience in the connections between the Smurfs and Mithraism.
Awesome. Okay.
And,
very cool.
Yeah,
well, let's just plan for that. That sounds great. I started to watch that video, but then I had to step away. So I'm gonna definitely catch up on that. Does he have other info out there too? Has I got a website and stuff? Or
I don't think so. I think this is just he's a professor, I think, locally, and then he put this together just for fun a few years ago. Really, it's been a while since it came out, and I think he presented it at some local bars here.
Cool.
As a live thing. So yeah, it's relatively untapped, and I'm very happy that he agreed to drag it out again for us, because it's perfect for our audience here, and builds on what we've been talking about. And I think we could build up here over the next few weeks to Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day is Michael Bloomberg's birthday, and he's the new Mithras, I think.
I think you're right. I remember when I found that picture of him as Papa Smurf and sent it to you. It was just like, what the hell?
Yeah, the people that work for Michael Bloomberg actually call him Papa Smurf.
Yep.
That's his nickname.
Yeah.
And Mithras looks like a Smurf. And
I mean, the Phrygian
Michael
cap.
Bloomberg,
yeah.
And Michael Bloomberg took over the Temple of Mithras in London, and it basically is the basement of his office building there now. So, I think of Michael Bloomberg as the pater of the new Mithras cult, and he's quite possibly going to be the next president, I think. Maybe even the new, I don't know,
the real God Emperor
of England.
Yeah,
huh?
The real God Emperor of the world instead of the pretend one. We've got the pretender to the worldly throne, Trump, and we're going to get the real one, Papa Smurf, Bloomberg, Mithras.
Look, I mean, Trump could be the God Emperor, but I mean, Bloomberg could probably buy him like 20 times over, So, I think Bloomberg's the looming, Antichrist on the horizon here, and the connections with Mithras. I mean, I really just had the fact that he had the Mithraeum as the fact that I based that novel on, where I have a character based on Bloomberg that does a bunch of magic rituals inside of a Mithraeum in the basement of an office building. So I came up with all this fiction based on a little sliver of truth. But since writing that book and all the research I did for it and after it, I realized that it's true. Like, there's no way that this is just a minor aspect of Bloomberg's personality. I think he's totally into the Mithras cult. There's a real reason why he decided to buy this thing, and put it in his office building. And there's a real, I think he's using Mithras magic somehow with the power play that he's about to make.
I think you're right.
And so yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, let's give everybody the official RX only / plus ultra out. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We're going to push the button. We say it every week. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
We'll see you next week with Papa Smurf. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.